The Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful people on Patreon. Amazing people like Gilmer, Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Matt aka Stormageddon, Ryan K, Stephen P, and Mr. Biscuits have all been wonderful enough to support the show over there. So if you would also like to get your name read at the beginning of an episode along with a bunch of other goodies, go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and check out everything it has to offer. On this episode of Still Loading, we're 2% towards 1,000 years. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today's episode, it is the fourth episode of Mario Month 2025. 4 Mario RPG games have been covered. Well, actually, sorry, 3 have been covered so far. This is the fourth. This episode, we are discussing Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, and returning to the show, both guests are returning guests, and in fact, I feel like both of them have been on for Mario Month more often than not, and I'm pretty sure this has become a running theme that I have very similar guests on for Mario Month every year. But we'll start off with the one who I have not had on for quite some time. We have Jared from the Play Along podcast. Jared, how are you doing today?
I'm back, baby, ready to talk about some more Mario. You're right. We did Super Mario Brothers on the Wii, the new Super Mario Brothers.
Yes. Were you on any of the racing episodes last year? We did Mario Kart, I should say, last year.
Yeah, I don't think so. No, I think it was the year before when I was on for Mario
I did
Month.
you a disservice. I should have had you on for one of the Mario Kart games.
Well, I'm honored to be back onto this one and to talk about a game that's very near and dear to my heart. So love Paper Mario.
It's funny because I think you were on for the new Super Mario Bros. Last year or 2 years ago, and then you did the Wizard with me and Stefan Reese from.
That's right.
Yes, that was a great time.
You know what's funny? To this day, I still like in a random context to my wife, I'll be like California, just all the time.
I that is like one of the things that gets stuck in my head way too easily. But that laugh you heard in the background is my other returning guest who was on. I think I know you were on. I don't remember the last episode you're on, but I know you were on for Mario Month last year for episode 300 for the Mario Fantasy Draft. Returning guest Try from My Life in Gaming. Try, how are you doing today?
Hey, glad to be here, and thanks so much for giving me an excuse to finally replay Thousand Year Door. I replayed it by playing the remake, so it was something that needed to be done.
Oh, I'm happy to have you back, and I'm happy that I got to play this for the first time. Now, I played the GameCube version of it, a totally legal version that I deleted after 24 hours, and I'm excited to discuss this, man. It's going to be a good time. Yeah, we are here to talk about Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, originally released on July 22nd, 2004 in Japan for the Nintendo GameCube, released in North America on October 11th, 2004, and in other regions a couple of days after that. I'm not going to break it all down. You can Google that shit if you want to. But we're here to talk about this this follow-up, this Paper Mario 2, as it were. So as we like to do, as we are wont to do, to steal a phrase from Retro Hangover, as I try to cite them as much as I can, as we are wont to do, we talk about our personal experiences and how we got into this. And I'll be straight. I'll go first only because mine's not that interesting. I played it for this show. That's it. I have never played this game prior to this. In fact, with the exception of Super Mario RPG, I had not played a single other Mario RPG game. I don't remember if I've said that in the previous episodes. These episodes are being recorded like a month or two apart from each other, so there's going to be a weird disconnect at times. Just a forewarning. But yeah, I didn't play any of these beforehand, and so I played this for the first time for this show, and it was an experience. Whether that's good or bad, you will have to wait to find
Oh
out.
no. Oh no.
So no, I enjoyed it. But
Yeah.
throwing it over to you, Jared, how did you
Yeah.
first kind of get into this game, and some of your personal experiences, and also we were talking about it off mic. I haven't done it for the previous episodes, but what better time than the second to last episode of the month to talk about how we got into Mario RPG games in general? So just go ahead and touch on both
Ooh.
of those.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Well, starting with just Mario RPGs in general, Paper Mario was the first Mario RPG that I played for the N64. I was telling
Mm,
the boys kind of before the recording is I was always kind of like a generation or so behind. Like around this time, 2005 or so, is when I got my GameCube. So like as the GameCube was almost out and the Wii was coming in, is when I jumped on the GameCube for the first time. So yeah, so I played Paper Mario on the N64 for the first time and was just blown away by it. I think the turn-based combat I was already a little familiar with for the most part from playing Pokemon and stuff as a kid. So I kind of
mhm.
latched on right away to that. But like the world building and the characters and the humor was really good. It just drew me into this series so much. And then when I got my GameCube in 2005 or so, I got Paper Mario Thousand Year Door with it. um and it was just like a very magical experience. I have a fun story where I actually did not finish it the first time playing through because I couldn't figure out how to oh, what's his name, Dupless is the
Oh
ghost.
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
As a kid, I could not comprehend and figure out how to do that and to get this puzzle, and then I just never finished it. I just never went back to it. And it wasn't until I think it was early or late high school that I ended up getting another copy of it. I tried to emulate it, and I don't know if you guys knew, but there was a version of the game that was like piracy protected, where when you would get to the point right as you're going down underneath Rogueport for the first time, and there's like the animation of the gate like flipping over and it's doing like the paper fold animation, the game just crashed, like it just freezes there and you can't go any further after that. Because I tried to emulate it as a kid and it did not work, but I ended up getting a copy of it later on in high school and playing through it and just falling in love with the game. And this one more so too, like they up the humor, there's more characters, there's like bigger
Mhm.
stakes and things like that, bigger boss battles, and it was a great time.
I'm man, I'm with you on the humor. Like that's one
Yeah.
thing I've
Yeah,
really enjoyed
dude, I was
about this series, but
yeah.
both this and the Mario and Luigi games. But
Yes, yes.
before we go into all of that, throwing it over to you, Try. How did you get into Thousand Year Door and, as we discussed before, Mario RPG games in general?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm the old fella here. So Super Mario RPG
Mm.
came out in 1996, which was it came out like right at the end of my of sixth grade, and I was just I was like both nervous and excited for it because a friend of mine rented RPGs all the time, like Final Fantasy, 4 and 6, which we called 2 and 3 back then. Lufia 1 and 2, Breath of Fire. He rented RPGs all the time, and like I was like, look, I'm like, these look so boring. Like I just don't like why do the enemies not animate? Why do you not
Mhm.
actually connect your attacks? And so I remember asking when Mario RPG was coming up, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a Mario game, but with like Donkey Kong Country style graphics. What? I need this. But I'm like, what the heck is an RPG? And I asked my friend, he's like, I think that means it's like Final Fantasy. And I'm like, oh no. Rest assured, I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan now, but this was kind of the start of the gateway to that. Like,
Oh, that's
uh,
awesome.
I I was like so afraid this was not going to be for me, but it was like Mario, so I had to try it. And I rented it, fell in love with it. Later picked it up at Best Buy, and yeah, I just absolutely landmark game for me. I mean, I played through it so many times. uh I just loved like the expanded world of Mario and just the strange enemies. You know, you've got
Mm,
this kind of like new, you know, boss group, and you team up with Bowser and stuff like that.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
cool. And so, you know, as time went on, by the time Paper Mario came out, had gotten into RPGs. You know, it was very cheap to buy used Super Nintendo RPGs at the time, and I'd gotten a PlayStation and stuff like that. So I got into RPGs. Chrono Trigger was like the game that, like, when I played that, it was like that's what flipped the switch to loving RPGs. Because Mario RPG, I'm like, well, I just like this RPG. You know, I don't
Because you
like
like
RPG.
Mario, so it's like I
Yeah.
like Mario, so of course I'll like this
Yeah.
RPG.
So, but yeah, Chrono Trigger was what really flipped the switch for me. Even though that originally came out earlier.
Hmm.
So when relatively early in the N64's life, I want to say it's a Nintendo Power from ah 97, 96, or maybe even 96. I think it was what they used to call Space World, which was like a
Yeah,
Nintendo.
Yeah.
that was like, you know, their state, that was kind of like Sony's State of Play or the Nintendo
Yeah.
Directs
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
but it was an actual in-person event.
In-person event. And I forget when they stopped doing it, because I believe the GameCube was unveiled at a
Yeah.
Space
At a
World.
space world. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so they did carry on for a little while, but yeah, there was like Nintendo Power coverage. I believe it was that event, and there were early screenshots of what was called Super Mario RPG 2, and of course. You know, by this point, it was like kind of becoming apparent that like Square was probably not going to participate with the N64 and stuff like that. So, like, this was a new developer, completely new look, and I was pretty unsure about the look, but still, just the mere fact it was called Super Mario RPG 2, like, really got me hyped. And then it was a long time. And I think Intelligent Systems, you know, that was not really a known developer over here because we didn't have Fire
Hmm.
Emblem yet.
Right.
And so it, it took them a while to figure out 3D. And I think that's a big part of the reason that Paper Mario has the style that it does. You know, even if you look at the end of the GameCube generation, you know, their kind of first real like 3D game with like 3D modeled characters and stuff like that was Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, and you know, even back then that was an ugly game. Um, so yeah, it took them a while to figure out, but I think they did come up with a clever art style.
Yeah.
Although I do believe that it was born out of like we don't know how to do 3D. I really do
Well,
think that.
It kind of
from
worked out for
my
them.
I think
oh
so.
man, I'd
Yeah.
have to bring up. You know what? Let me bring up my notes from the Paper Mario episode because I did have notes on how I like. I feel bad because people would have just heard it like 2 episodes ago. But like I said, we are recording this like well in advance type of thing. But they here we go. But there was some. It wasn't just because of the 3D models. Here's actually was they originally tried using 3D models for the graphics, but it was too close to Zelda or Super Mario 64, so it actually got rejected. Like
Oh,
Interesting.
it
interesting.
got rejected, and they ended up dusting off Super Famicom tools to create the artwork for Paper
Ah,
Mario. So
okay. That's
a
cool.
lot of the sprites in that was done using Super Famicom development tools. Kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Probably want to give it that kind of like that style to it too.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
anyway, even though you know it ended up being released as Paper Mario and not Super Mario RPG 2, I mean this was still you know the second Mario RPG, which was just such a huge game for me. So I had to get it day
Hmm.
one. You know, I was ready to pay the money day one to get it, and you know it was good. I've never replayed the original Paper Mario,
Yeah.
so it's
I
hard.
enjoyed it quite a bit. Like
It's it,
I
yeah.
think it actually I I'll go into it more, but it actually, you know what? I'll explain more when we start talking about Thousand Year Door in
Ooh.
earnest. I have like it's like mixed opinions on which I think is better and worse. I'll go into it. It's a little bit.
Interesting,
I don't want to give
interesting.
it away too much just yet.
Okay. Okay.
Well, well, you know, my kind of feelings on Paper Mario 1, it just for me, it can never get away from the fact that it's not Super Mario RPG 2.
Right, right.
Like it
Well,
Mhm.
just
especially like being marketed as Super Mario RPG 2, like initially too,
yeah,
that probably like had like an idea
exactly.
of what it was going to be in your head.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same situation kind of with like Yoshi's Story. Like I was more hyped for that than like Ocarina of Time, which we were calling Zelda 64 at the time. Because I mean, it's the
Yeah.
freaking well, initially they were calling it Yoshi's Island 2, right? Or
Mhm.
it might have been Yoshi's Island 64, I think actually. But like I was so hyped for it because it's like, dude, I mean, Yoshi's Island was an incredible game. I was so hyped for it. And then Yoshi's Island, your Yoshi's Story is not Yoshi's Island 2. So it was kind of a similar situation where it's like, well, but of course the difference was Paper Mario was good. Yoshi's Story kind of isn't. Um, Paper Mario
Shots
is
fired.
good, but
Yeah.
it was just it was always living in the shadow. There was just no way
Sure.
for me personally with how big
Yeah.
Super Mario RPG was for me. There was just no way it could ever come out of that game's shadow. And when I streamed a slice of the remake during my playthrough just this past Sunday, someone in the chat was saying, I think it's so strange that they remade Thousand Year Door, not the original, because the original needs it more. And
Sure.
kind of my feeling on that is like, yeah, I mean that does make sense. I would love for there to be a remake of the original because it one to give me an excuse to replay it, and an opportunity to kind of reevaluate it and judge it on its own merits versus just being not Super Mario RPG 2. And but my kind of feeling was like, it's kind of such a boring scenario, though. Like, okay,
Mm,
Bowser kidnaps Peach, and whereas like
sure.
the original Mario RPG, like it really had like a unique
Yeah, that
scenario,
story is
like
that story is wild.
it has its own story to
Yeah.
tell that's not just the same thing we've heard again and again in Mario. And like for the platformers, I do feel that there is like sort of a a repetitive comfort. I think of the trope of it being the same story
Mhm.
every time. That's
Sure.
just kind of what Mario is. It's okay. It's just Bowser, Peach, whatever. But I liked that the very first Mario RPG really did something super different.
Yeah.
It has its own story that's worth telling. And I feel like that then is where Thousand Year Door really came into its own because
Yeah.
it created its own identity that is not just an RPG surrounding the story of Bowser kidnaps Peach. It tells its own story, its own scenario that is like maybe like the most hardcore Mario scenario ever in terms of
Just a
like
little. Just a little.
what wild stuff happens in this that I can't believe like got through. Like and
Yeah. People
it
are
didn't
dying, like characters are like dying and they're talking about death and stuff like this. It's
you
wild.
you
Peach is
play
naked at one point.
you play as Pete. That was what I was about to say. You play as a she's invisible. She drank an invisibility potion, but
Yeah.
she's streaking across the enemy base on a
Yeah.
secret mission. Like, what the heck? How did this happen?
Yeah.
Like it's like before and after, and I think that's why this game became so beloved. And it was immediately like,
Sorry.
yes, paper.
There's
I'm
many
not saying
other
it became.
reasons
I'm,
it's not just Peach, but you
it's
were
not
like
just Peach.
you
I'm
you
saying
ended that sentence at like I think this is why this game became so beloved, and the last thing you mentioned was Peach
Peach
streaking.
it
I'm
has
like,
nothing to
well,
do with
Peach
the
I mean,
drinking.
maybe.
it has nothing to do with the invisible naked Peach, but just things like that where this game does so many things that are
Yeah.
just very unexpected for Mario, very dark and stuff like
Yes.
that. That it's like, okay, Paper Mario has developed its own identity. Paper Mario is a thing to be excited about.
Yeah.
I no longer feel like this is not Super Mario RPG. This is its own thing that is great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it came out my junior year in college, and I played through it probably in like a week. I don't know. Me and my roommate loved it. This was my roommate wasn't so much of a game player, but almost always like watched like the big
Yeah.
games I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
playing through. This was the time before Twitch, right? So so yeah, I absolutely loved it, and I really wanted to revisit it after I played Origami King because I feel like
Oh, I
Origami
still have to
King.
play Origami King.
I feel like Origami King is really uh I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't follow the conversation that much, but I feel like it's kind of overlooked in some ways because
Yeah.
the prior several Paper Mario games have been kind of
Yes.
bad.
And I think that's why, like, not that I avoided it for any specific reason, but Origami King was like the closest to kind of like this, kind of Paper Mario thematically
Yeah.
than Sticker Star or all of the other ones as well.
Yeah. So I played Origami King probably a few months after it released, and I was blown away. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's got I think it's got the best soundtrack of any Switch exclusive game. I love the soundtrack
Whoa,
of that,
okay.
which I think is a big difference from the prior Paper Mario games. Because I mean, there's some standout tunes, but on the whole, I just don't think there's anything too special about the earlier Paper Mario soundtracks. I don't know if that's a bad opinion,
I
but
don't know either.
regardless, I was blown away by by Origami King, but it had been so long since I'd played
Sure.
Thousand Year Door, and I was like, Thousand Year Door had been like the clear
Yeah.
best Paper Mario game by like a mile,
Yeah.
and uh, I was really unsure when Origami King came out. Like, oh, is this my new favorite or is it still Thousand Year Door? I couldn't really decide because it was so long ago, and honestly, I had
Interesting.
forgotten so much of Thousand Year Door. I just remembered loving it. I remembered it being pretty hardcore, um, and so I wanted to replay it. So it was a huge surprise when Super Mario RPG got a remake, Thousand Year Door got a remake. I mean, because
Yeah,
these were
they were in
two
the same. They were in the same presentation too, right? Like they both got
were
announced
they?
in the same direct.
Ah, I
Wow.
don't remember if that was the case, but I mean, they weren't that far apart when in release either. So, and these are probably like the two most off-brand Mario RPGs, or Mario games in general, among the most off-brand in terms of, especially in terms of what they do with Mario today. So it's
Mhm.
all the more surprising they brought these back, especially in light of, I don't really know how true this is. I feel like the fan imagination of this is much greater than the situation actually was. But there was the whole thing where, starting with Sticker Star, they didn't really have like the unique characters anymore. Toads are just toads. There's no like visual difference of like a female toad. Like everyone's just a toad. You can't make like unique characters like Vivian and other characters that are like not the established like Mario characters and enemy types, right?
Mm.
So, and apparently this was something that came from Miyamoto. I think it came out in a Wada Asks about Sticker Star, and people were really upset about that. I don't actually know how true that was in terms of like, this is like a mandate. We can never like make up like new stuff for like these Mario RPGs again. I don't know if that's really the
I
case or
I
not.
wouldn't, knowing Miyamoto's track record with RPGs and his opinions on them, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. But at the same time, it does seem odd to me that he would limit it so much,
Yeah,
because like,
yeah,
Mhm.
especially when he didn't in the past, like I would almost assume people would be more conservative. Like if you're trying to branch out from something from your like your S tier IP. Mario is their cream of the crop, right? And you're branching out to something so different. Wouldn't you go more conservative to start out? Like, not go take too many big swings, but like both
Mhm.
this game, Super Mario RPG, all of the Mario RPG games that I've played up until this point, at the time we're recording this, I am 3/4 of the way through the last one, which Partners in Time, which you will hear next week.
Ooh,
But
nice.
so I'm 3/4. So I've played pretty much all of the Mario RPGs that I'm covering for this Mario month at the
Mhm.
time we're recording this, right? Um, each one, they try some wild stuff with the writing, with the characters,
Yeah.
with like they're all so unique and different. I will say, so far, Partners in Time plays it the most safe out of all of
Mhm.
them. But it's still not like, it's still got a fun localization, good sense of humor, and all that
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry, Try. Is there anything else you want to say about your kind of
No,
introduction to
no.
the
I mean,
game?
I'm kind of just rambling at this point,
No
So
worries.
I will say though, I did really fall off of the series and
Yeah.
newer Mario RPGs in general
Yeah.
up until Origami King, because I didn't like Super Paper Mario. I didn't like Sticker Star. I didn't play Color Splash until after Origami King, and I went into it like knowing that it ain't gonna be no Thousand Year Door.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be. It was a better version of what Sticker Star tried to do. It was
Yeah.
okay, and
And
I actually jumped off of Mario and Luigi after Bowser's Inside Story, and I haven't played
yeah.
one since because like Bowser's Inside Story was like it was good, but there's so many things about just like the flow of those games and you know the way
I'm
the
kind
text
of
breaks
noticing that
the
as well
action
with it.
so
I'll,
much. Yeah, and I just so much of like, okay, here's a puzzle, and then it's like, okay, well, why don't we try to do this? It's like, why is the game constantly like presenting me with a challenge and just telling me what to do? You know, I don't remember if part of the times was that way, but I felt like that way a lot in Bowser's Inside Story. I'm like, okay, this was a fun scenario and it was funny and enjoyable to play through, but like I'm not super jiving with the gameplay, and I kind of felt like this is as good as Mario and Luigi can be. So I kind of feel like I'm done. I don't know.
I've heard Brothership is really good though.
I do want to give it a chance.
Yeah, I've
I
heard
want to
Brothership
give
is
it a
good
chance because it finally, like, you know, it broke out into a console game. So I feel like that's like the
Right.
right time, the right game for me to give a chance to, but I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I getcha. I getcha. Now, before we move on, so normally I've been trying to like intermix my fun facts, you know, like stuff I've done for research from each of the games, like into the episodes as we converse on the different topics and different segments. But there's really not a lot to go into with any of this. I like what's wild is you know, the first Paper Mario, I found like an interview on Schmuppalations. You know, there's little bits on Paper Mario you can look when they do the Iwata asked for like I think Sticker Star or maybe it was you know the new or Super Paper Mario or whatever. When they do the Iwata asked for that, they do have some little tidbits because they a lot of times the teams stay the same, and so like they will interview them and ask them how they got started on the series and then there's usually some really fun tidbits. So any of you researchers out there looking for stuff, you can maybe find some things like that. I actually also tried, you know, at the time of recording this, the Video Game History Foundation just opened up their online digital library, which is it's insane how what is on there. It's and from what I've heard, I did not listen to the podcast. I saw a snippet. I saw like a Blue Sky post. I refuse to call it a skeet. A Blue Sky post.
Wait. That's what we're calling it.
Is that what it's called?
I heard
no.
someone call it that, and that is supposedly what it is. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just calling it a post.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can we call it a bleat? Can it be a bleat?
That's at least a little better. I don't know. But they were talking about how apparently even they went live, but they obviously have a pretty big archive of stuff. They've only put up like 5% of their archive, and there's like an insane amount of stuff already on there. So I couldn't find too much in terms of like stuff on there. I was able to find because I was looking up just interviews in general. Like a lot of times I'll go to like the Wikipedia page and then I'll look at the sources at the bottom and then I'll use that as a jumping off point to be like, all right, where do they get this bit of info? Where do they get this bit of info? There's like nothing in the development section. So I couldn't even use it as like a jumping off point. So I found I found like a post where someone was like, oh, someone actually found a new an interview with the developers of Thousand Year Door, and it's from NGC magazine, which was like a UK based like Nintendo magazine. Or I forget exactly what it was called. You know what? I was able to find a full version of the magazine online, and I downloaded it. I found like the problem is that I downloaded it into individual pages.
No.
So as image files. So I literally look at my phone image, like in my recent image, there's like 96 pictures in a row of just magazine pages.
Just magazine pages. That's wild. That's so funny.
So yes, it is NGC magazine, which is independent Nintendo NGC magazine, independent Nintendo gaming. I don't know if that's just what's underneath it. So it's not even advertised on their page, like on the cover of it, and even in the sections, it's not advertised like in their section. Sorry, that doesn't make sense. In their previews in the table of contents, it's not even advertised in there. You have to like kind of like look in between. You have to kind of just find it almost randomly. And there's there's like a 2-page blurb where they interviewed the developers of Thousand Year Door. And wasn't a whole lot of stuff. A lot of it was just kind of them talking about like what games they're excited for in the future.
Mhm.
Like, what do you wish you could work on? Which I totally get. As an interviewer, you want to make your guest comfortable and kind of break the ice, so it's not just
Sure.
all serious stuff. um so yeah, it's for those curious, it's page 40 and 41, and it's still listed as Paper Mario 2 on this.
Oh,
um
interesting.
Oh, okay.
because this issue came out, it was the November 2004 issue, so the game would have just been coming out at the time, in because it came out in 2004. November '04 would have been the month it came out in Europe, and this is a British magazine. So obviously they write those usually like a month or so ahead of time because it's a print
Mhm.
magazine. So they were probably only working off of 2-month old information at the time it was written. So they have an interview, and just some of the stuff I found there. Uh, just some fun facts I found there. It was the first Paper Mario game to be localized in North America. um Actually, I got that from Did You Know Gaming, but it was the first Paper
Mhm.
Mario game to be localized in like physically in North America. The
Yeah.
Interesting.
original Paper Mario game was localized in Japan. So you can kind of tell like there's
Yeah,
a
I was
little
gonna
bit
say with like the humor and stuff like that, a lot of the
yeah,
jokes, a lot of the writing, you can kind of tell is very kind of like Western
I mean,
written, Western centric.
I think
yeah.
they generally. I mean, I don't know if this would have been the case for Paper Mario, but like I know, like for the Zelda N64 games, they actually sent like Nintendo Power staff over to Japan, and they did the localization. The American uh, Nintendo Power staff like did the localization like
Okay.
in Japan. Yeah,
Mhm.
some of the writers. So I would be surprised if it wasn't a native English
Yeah.
speaker that was doing the
Well,
localization
it
on the
was it
first
was
one,
done at the
but
Nintendo Treehouse, so like this was
right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah.
The developers had to share a lot of design docs with Miyamoto before the game was approved to even go into development. And they talked about there was a lot of back and forth with Miyamoto just to get the game approved. They cited an example of how much convincing they had to do with Miyamoto was with the quote unquote flimsy paper mechanics. So all the stuff that you would see here, how like you can turn
Interesting.
Mario sideways to go through
Sure.
different
Yeah, yeah.
alleys, roll Mario up to go on to roll to do other things, turn him into an airplane, stuff like that. That was all stuff that kind of needed convincing, as it were.
See, that
Uh,
sounds like something Miyamoto would have been. He would have
That's
thought
what
that was fun.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like that would have been right up his alley. It's that weird like Nintendo gimmicky theme that I feel like is
Yeah,
very common for them.
I think before they didn't have it fully fleshed out.
Sure.
The vibe I kind of got from what I was reading on the interview was that Miyamoto is very much like he can see a good idea, and he won't necessarily tell the people like what he wants per se. He wants them to
I
figure it out
see.
because it become a little bit more organic that way. It felt very much like a teacher just trying to teach. I don't know.
Like
I'd have
guiding
to.
in that direction rather than just like
Yeah, it was. It
answer.
was. It felt kind of odd. Like it's just them going back, and he's like, "No, no, you." Basically, it's like they came up with an interesting gameplay mechanic, and he's like, "This is interesting, but I need more." And so then they have to
yeah.
go out
Yeah.
and figure out kind of like what does that mean. Like, now to be fair, I am speculating. I don't know if he just was that vague or if he went into more detail as to like, oh, what if you did this, this, and this. But it
Sure.
very much felt like like the development team would come up with an idea, he would like it, but he would ask them to provide more information on it so that way they could have it more fully fleshed out before the game goes into full on development.
Yeah, and
um
I think that was the case, is what it seems like, because like we were talking about before, there's some wild stuff that like passed this game that I'd feel like wouldn't necessarily be approved. So maybe it was just like exactly what you're saying, where Miyamoto is kind of like pushing them in that direction, like you're doing great, you're doing a great job. Give me a little bit more. Give me a little bit more of
Yeah.
how you're going to build off of this. And I think that reflects in the gameplay, because a lot of those mechanics and a lot of that, it all feels very natural with the game in itself. And in the world they created, it feels very natural too.
so I actually found the exact section right here. So this is a quote from, let me double check who this is. This should be Kenshiro Ueda, who was the coordinator of Thousand Year Door development. A quote from him: here's the beginning of the quote. Mr. Miyamoto has been involved in the project as a sort of supervisor. He reviewed the planning sheet and approved the development to be initiated. After that, he helped by supervising and confirming the directions of graphics and character artwork. Actually, the very first challenge Mr. Kawada and I and others had to face was how to convince Mr. Miyamoto. For example, we had to explain how we utilize the idea of things being flimsy like paper to a large degree in the final game. The utilization of paper like elements was more of an improvement for him than an innovation, since the original idea was there on the N64 version. We were supposed to generate the novelty aspect as well. Unfortunately, we could not receive the passing mark from Mr. Miyamoto regarding this novelty test when we presented the planning sheet. However, I asked Intelligent Systems, won't you be able to show 1,000 plate polygons, polygon characters at once on screen? I asked this because I wanted to show Mr. Miyamoto that this game was going to be really showy and fun. And when Intelligent Systems finished the programming for 1,000 characters and showed it to him, Mr. Miyamoto finally gave the game his go ahead. It appears that we presented him with was what he had wanted to do in the N64 version. There we go. End quote. Sorry, that last, it was a little bit hard with what was hard to say. but you can kind of see what I mean by that vibe, where they kept going back to him and he would just like kind of turn away an idea, but not entirely, and would ask to kind of have them iterate it or flesh out an idea a little bit better. So I thought that was kind of interesting and cool.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many instances of that in the game too, where you're in a large group of enemies and you're hitting with your hammer and they're flying in different directions. Like that happens so many times in that game. So it makes sense if this was kind of an idea that Miyamoto already wanted to do, if they're like, yeah, I want you to see how you can do it. And once they showed it to him, he's like, yeah, let's go. Let's lean with that.
Yeah. And what's kind of crazy is, they were able to do that relatively, I say relatively easily. There were probably challenges, but on GameCube, there are these flat objects essentially, right? But in the remake, there's actually a bit of depth to the paper characters. Like they're actually layered in a way where the top bit of Peach's hair is a little bit in front of her face. Mario's arms and gloves are in front of his body. You can see like the edge. They're like a little bit more like a styrofoam cutout or something like that.
There's instances with when Mario is talking to another character, and he obviously Mario's silent, doesn't talk, but he has a variety of like facial expressions and like body movements that he does. And he does this one where his top half kind of just like twists a little bit, like he's kind of confused or looking at something. There's like a little bit of a shadow that like is on his character too.
Yeah, like a little bit of a dog head, head cock.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. Yeah. Do you not do that in the original version?
I don't know, but like I think what you were saying too, I noticed it a lot in this remake specifically because of like the depth and like you're talking about.
And it's crazy how much they did. They were able to still like push all these characters. I'm sure there may have been some shortcuts on the scenes where they have like a bunch of characters or something, and obviously, it has to be said that the original version was 60 frames per second and the new one is 30 frames per second. So they were maybe being a little over ambitious, debatably, but it's overall so gorgeous, and I think it was kind of worth it.
I'll be honest, I cannot tell that it's not 60 frames per second. I think I never, like, don't get me wrong, I can see it like on some games, but a lot of times like the difference between 30 and 60 is not as noticeable as I think some people make it out to be. Some games it is. Like if you ever play like World of Warcraft and you play that at 30 frames a second and you play at 60, you're like, holy shit, this looks nice.
And I think games that are like fast paced and fast moving, you can notice it. Like in games like Spider-Man on like PS5. Like I feel like that you can, but same with as you, Josh. I didn't notice like, oh, this is clearly running lower than 60. Like it wasn't.
I think that it was the only Paper Mario game, the original GameCube version. I think is the only one that was 60 to begin with. So
interesting.
I think I could be mistaken, but
I would not know.
So anyway, like in my mind I'm thinking, well, they're trying to bring the game up to the visual standard or
Right.
perhaps even beyond of Origami King, which was 30 frames per second. I mean, I think it makes sense. It's a shame, don't get me wrong, but on the whole I think pushing the visuals of the game to really sell that paper aesthetic, that cutout aesthetic, the reflections, which are absolutely absurdly like
Yeah, any
it's
body of water that's anywhere is just so good.
all of the reflections look insane. Like it's kind of probably like Wind Waker HD, where like people could say like, oh, there's too much bloom. Now they could say like Thousand Year Door. I bet there's people that say, oh, it's too shiny. But I don't know. Those reflections look really good in it.
It looks
So
good. It looked phenomenal on the stream. I did watch your stream
yeah,
because
yeah,
I don't own the remake. I
yeah,
played a version that I deleted after 24 hours.
yeah. But
Um,
it's a slow moving enough of a game that like
mhm.
it doesn't bother me personally. But yeah, so it's still though impressive that they're pulling this all off on the Switch, which is ancient by now.
I
Yeah.
know. I mean,
So
even when it came out, it was old hardware inside that thing.
yeah,
Like
Oh yeah.
it's truly impressive what they've been able to do with the system.
yeah.
Sorry, one last thing for this is the last bit of interesting info that I thought was or info that I found interesting, I should say. Was they did have an idea, and I'm pretty sure now you played the ones after this. Jared, did you as well, the other Paper Marios, or no?
No, I played a little bit of Sticker Star, but no, I didn't touch anything at least substantially past 1,000 Year
Okay.
Door.
I think I saw this in like clips from Super Paper Mario. They had an idea in this game of player drawing lines and pictures on paper to expand the paper mechanics, but
Mm.
that was scrapped. And I'm pretty sure I've seen stuff on like I think Super Paper Mario where you'll like you don't necessarily draw per se,
Yeah.
but you'll like click and drag a square and it'll flip stuff around or something
Yes,
like that.
I have seen that they played with
Yeah,
like the
that
idea of a third
sounds
dimension where it's like 2D, but you can draw a square on your character and it'll flip to like a 3D plane where you
Yeah.
can go like
yeah, that
behind
sounds sort
things
of
and you can
yeah.
find treasure and stuff like that.
I mean, which was honestly annoying, I thought, in Super Paper Mario because, like,
I mean,
you felt
doesn't mean
this,
they implemented it well, but it
yeah,
feels very much like it was an idea they had and they
yeah.
just kind of tweaked it a bit. Sorry, continue, Try. I cut
Oh,
you off.
I mean, I'm getting onto a totally different game, but I'm just saying, like, it was kind of annoying to me because, like, you felt this compulsion to check, like, in
Yeah.
each dimension, every inch of every screen, like, oh, there might be something hidden here, so I have to check. Oops, there's nothing here. So it kind of
Yeah.
like it was a cool idea that in practice I thought became very
Well,
tedious.
yeah, that and also kind of straying away from the turn-based RPG stuff and having it be more of a platformer was like,
Yeah.
man,
To
See,
me,
ignore.
I didn't even want to know that. I haven't played it yet.
yeah.
Delete it
So,
from your brain.
well,
What? What was
yeah.
that?
I mean, honestly, like kind of the only real criticism I have of Thousand Year Door in general is actually kind of related to Super Paper Mario, and I think Super Paper Mario took it to a much worse extreme. But
Mm.
I don't know if you want me to get into it or not.
No,
But
no, no. We'll save that for when I do another series of Mario RPG games where but
Ooh.
that might be in another 3 or 4 years. I what has consistently happened on my show is I'll come up with a series to do. I always do Mario month every year, but last year I did my and actually Try, you were part of it. I did my Toriyama month and I covered Dragon Quest 1 through 3
Ooh, yeah.
and Chrono Trigger. And so by the end of that I was so burnt out on RPGs. And to be fair, Dragon Quest are, especially those old ones, are not the most user friendly, to say the least. So that I got burnt out really quickly. This time I'm not burnt out, but I am kind of like I could use a break from RPGs again. I've played
Yeah.
five
Yeah,
in the
you
net.
palate cleanser.
Well, I mean, I what is it? In the midst of all playing this, my patrons voted for me to cover Infamous, so I already beat that. So
Oh, there you
I was
go.
able to like burn. That was like a nice palate cleanser in between this and Partners in Time, which, like I said, I'm getting close to beating.
Yeah, Infamous couldn't be further from a Paper Mario game.
yeah,
Exactly. But yeah, so let's continue on then. That's all the fun facts that I had. The last thing I will bring up with that magazine, though, it was really freaking funny. So on one of the pages, I don't even remember which page it was. I'll see if I can find it on here. I was trying to, when I found the page, when I found this article. I was trying to find the page on it because I downloaded the whole magazine and I was trying to find the specific article that I saw blurry screenshots of, but in the process of looking for it, and I found the page exactly on page 94. There is a weird picture where they Photoshop Reggie Fils-Aimé's head on top of what
Oh,
looks like the
I
Rock's
saw you
body.
post this.
Yeah, and it's got a little. I know you're not on Blue Sky. Try. I will see if I can. I'll get it off of Blue Sky and I'll send it to you in Discord. Because
Wait, this isn't this magazine article you're talking about?
no, it's in the same magazine, but it's on a different page entirely.
Yeah,
Well,
wild photo.
I can't even believe that we're talking about 2004 though, because was that, had Reggie been revealed? If that, I guess he had probably by that
I think
time.
I'm pretty sure. I forget when exactly he kind of came
Yeah,
over.
he
But
probably well, you know what? He probably debuted around this time because
Yeah, I just a quick Google. Just December 2003 is when he kind of first peeked into
yeah,
Nintendo as one of their
okay,
executives.
yeah. Because then, like the following E3, he pulled the
Mhm.
DS out of his jacket pocket,
Yep,
and then the DS released at the end of 2004. Yeah, that adds up. That adds up.
The math tracks. The math's kind
I sent you the picture of it. Try. It's got a little word bubble that says "Reg needs meat raw."
What? Okay, well there you go.
Man, I miss Reggie, man. I miss
I
the
do
Reggie
too.
era.
I know it's not an actual quote from him, but I love that they did that. And underneath it, I didn't include this in the picture. It says Reggie's name taking challenge, and then the underneath it says, "Oh, couldn't you do my last challenge? I'm giving you one more go at it. Then it'll be time for me to polish up my boots and kick some, yes, you've guessed it, top quality ass."
Top
And
quality. Okay.
I think it's about. I think the challenge was
Quality.
about F-Zero GX. It was like there's 6 tracks in F-Zero GX's AX Cup. I want you to complete all 6 with a total time of 8.5 minutes or less. You may snake in honor of my snake hips. Snake? What the fuck? I did not read that ahead of time, and it makes me very uncomfortable that they're referring to Reggie as having snake hips.
That's crazy.
what is it?
Oh man.
And then they basically asked readers to send in pictures of their times, like take a picture of your screen and
Their
show
snake
like,
hips.
of their snake hips. What's weird is this is the November 2004 issue, and they're like, you need to send me this by October 29th, 2004. I'm like, I think you're confused.
Yeah, wait a minute.
This is issue 99 for November 2004. When did that? You know what? I'll look on the thing again to see, like, because they should have the date of the release on the magazine somewhere. So we'll see about that. But yeah, it just says November 2004. That does fuck all to help. I have no idea how they expected anyone to be able to compete with this thing. Anyway, all right. That's the last of that digression. I just had to share that picture of Reggie saying "Reg needs meat" roar because it was just so freaking silly.
Wow.
Well, we should probably actually start talking about the game in earnest. We're about 15 minutes in or so, maybe give or take after some editing. We've kind of danced around a whole lot of different things about this game.
Yeah.
And normally I would say let's break it up into gameplay and then story and this one. I actually think it might be smarter to talk about. We can talk about the gameplay, but like, there's a lot of unique things in each chapter of this game. I'm not saying we have to go chapter by chapter, but like each chapter had some really fun ideas and mechanics and some not so fun ideas and mechanics. And we'll get into all of that. I will say the first thing I want to talk about off the top, like I mentioned before, how like I had opinions on this compared to the first Paper Mario game. So I'll just kind of get this out of the way right now. I think the original how can I put this? I think this game is better than the original Paper Mario, but it's more inconsistent. What I mean by that is Paper Mario 1, it feels like a very even keeled, like in terms of quality, in terms of moments from moment to moment gameplay that what I enjoyed. Paper Mario 1 was more consistent. There was more consistency in terms of my enjoyment in it. I enjoyed it pretty much the whole way through. This one, there was moments that were like so much better than the original Paper Mario, and there's moments that are so much worse.
Yeah.
Specifically, Chapter 7, Mario shoots to the moon.
I
Fuck
know
that chapter.
exactly what you're going to talk about.
That
Yeah.
chapter can go
You're going to
die
talk
in a
about the
ditch.
Hunt for
Yes.
General White, right? So
Yes.
this is something I want to talk about as well.
Let's go right into it. Sure.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, because so it's really interesting. So would you say that because again, I haven't played through Paper Mario since 2001. Would you say that Paper Mario 1 doesn't really do any like waste your time things like that?
A little bit of like fetch questy stuff and things like that.
There's a handful of things, but it's nowhere near as egregious as
Yeah.
this. Like
Yeah.
this game has moments like that, and actually, it was on your stream. When you got to the one, they played it off as a joke. It was the Keelhaul Key section where
Yeah.
you have to go back. Yeah, I think it's when you have to go back there to get Don Pianta's daughter and her husband.
And her
Yeah,
husband.
yeah.
And look for the ring and everything.
And then he has to apologize 100
Yeah.
times, and you literally have to sit there
Yeah.
and confirm
Yeah.
100.
It's not
awful.
funny. I actually thought that was funny.
So I mean that's that is like I agree.
I don't mind that. I just think it's indicative of the worst. Like I think that is like symptomatic of what they do worse later on. Sorry,
100%. And I probably already kind of alluded to this on that stream, so you probably already heard me say this, Josh. Try to forget about it when you inevitably play Super Paper Mario. But I feel like one of the things that turned me off of Super Paper Mario was that they do that, but worse. I mean, I don't remember a lot of specific scenarios. I remember a few that annoyed me. Like early on, there was this thing with this treadmill that like you have to run on for like way longer than you think you actually should have to, and you're like, nothing's happening. This can't be what I'm supposed to do. And then you wander around everywhere, like trying to figure out what am I actually supposed to do. And it turns out that is actually what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to run on this thing for way longer than you actually think you should be supposed to. And so I feel, and it was really interesting going back to Thousand Year Door and finding similar scenarios that I didn't remember, or it didn't really bother me that much at the time. And now I'm kind of discovering, oh, this is like a little bit of a trend with the series, or at least something that at least started with this game, where they are creating humor at the player's expense. Like they're like, haha, look at this ridiculous thing that we are making you do. Isn't that funny? It's like, it's funny, but I don't want to do it.
Sure. And in a time too where like there's like so many of modern games are trying to like respect the player's time and everything. And I understand, right? Like do it for the bit, right? That's why I actually liked the click the thing 100 times.
But like that's so minimal too. It's so minimal compared to other stuff.
In this instance, when General White, where you're essentially like going on a wild goose chase for no reason multiple times, like that's where it's like oh my gosh, you're just trying to progress, and you're just like, it seems like it's wasting your time.
My best thought with that was that they were trying to encourage the player to revisit places they hadn't been to in a really long time. They're like, oh, I forgot to check in on this or do this side quest, or I have this new ability now, I can do this thing. But in practice at that point of the game, I think you are really focused on moving forward. So
I would say like that's where you nail it, because I do think that like it is important, like if you're wanting to do side quests, or there's lots of areas of why you're progressing from the beginning of this game where like I can't get to this thing, and I know I can't get to this thing until I have a power. But you're right, it's a little late to do that like at the last chapter of this game essentially.
And I don't think the game does a great job of encouraging you to want to do the side quests anyway. They aren't that interesting. The rewards aren't that interesting. You know, if you just stick to the main quest and, collect the star bits, exchange them for some good badges, you're going to be fine.
I mean,
get those
at best
shines.
you're getting shine sprites, which is great because you can upgrade your partners, but like you're getting mushrooms, and you're getting like the sad little mushrooms and things like that for these side quests.
Yeah. So I think that was, jumping straight on to chapter 7, Josh. That I think is the thing that made me feel when I was done with this replay of the game.
Yeah.
That I was like, you know what? you know what? I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if I preferred Origami King over Thousand Year Door or not, but now I do think I'm pretty comfortable in saying, probably a controversial opinion, I think Origami King is my favorite Paper Mario now.
Yeah, gosh, I still need to play that. But it's so funny that you bring this up first, Josh, because this was the one thing that I thought was gonna be like was gonna just drive you crazy was was this chapter of this
I had
game.
a
This
feeling it
fucking
would drive you
chapter,
crazy
man.
too.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And so, like the thing that I've noticed with this game, and all the Paper Mario's kind of do this a little bit. In the first one, there's the dry desert outpost or whatever,
Yeah.
where you have to like go to these ruins, but to unlock the ruins, you have to find these arbitrary items fetch quest thing, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to do. And like,
Yeah.
how would you figure that out? I think that's a problem. Like, I don't like how vague they are being. This one gives you a little bit more hints for it, but it's so annoying to backtrack to all these different locations. And additionally,
Yeah.
the final one where you basically have to go back to where you started for this one, you
Yeah.
have to go back to kind of like this Russian bomb town.
Mhm.
It give you like no help with it. You just have to like, it'd be like, well, I've gone every other place, so I guess I go back to where I started. That's the only logical thing you can do.
Yeah.
That's the only logic I can apply to it. And even then, it's like there's still places I could have gone.
Yeah.
And it feels like this game just really likes to make you backtrack for unnecessary reasons. I also think back to chapter 4 for the
Mhm.
pigs, the bell tolls, where
Yeah.
there's
You're going
only
back and forth between that town a lot.
Yeah,
yes,
you have to go all the way to the chapel.
all the
Yeah.
way to the chapel and then back. And that's really fucking annoying. I really hated that a lot. So that's when I was trying to say there's really high highs and really low lows.
Yeah.
The low
Yeah.
lows are what I mentioned here, but the high highs, like, man, the train stuff is really fun. A little
Yeah.
tedious at times, but like the murder on the Orient Express style chapter 6,
Yeah,
3 Days of
I
Excess, and
I
then of Glitz and Glory, which I was watching a YouTube video, which I will get the YouTuber's name because I don't want to steal their point without giving them credit. They kind of say it's like an anime tournament arc, you know?
Yes.
It's great.
well, really, the whole game. I mean, I'm not the most well versed in anime and like tokusatsu and stuff, but it really feels like each chapter is designed to be super episodic, and you've
Yep.
kind of got these like super idiotic villains in the making weaving their machinations in the background with their like
Mhm.
their lackeys that all look exactly the same and stuff like that. It really feels like they're trying to fit a Japanese kids and teens like TV format, which I think
Yeah.
is fun. I think is
Yeah.
fun.
I think on this playthrough too, I felt the same as you, Josh. Where I love this game, I do, and I think the lows don't get outshined by the things that are really good. But
Agreed.
replaying this and doing like the train section also was like almost hit or miss for me. I like most of it, but I mean that's a glorified trading sequence, right? You go here
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
this thing to give this person's items. So you can go here and you get the blanket and the diary and everything. So it's
yeah.
just like
I struggled with it too because I was streaming because that is the segment of the game that I like. I remember the middle of the game the best.
sure.
For some reason, I mean, you can't forget Raw Cock. You can't forget Raw Cock.
I love
You
him
can't
so
you can't
much.
forget Dupless. You can't
Yeah,
forget
dude, this is great.
but the that train segment was just like there. I could have you could have pushed me into another reality where that chapter of the game was something that was not on a train,
Sure.
and I would not have known that I had originally played a train segment in the original because I didn't remember anything about it. I remembered nothing. You could have completely fooled me by swapping it with another scenario. I remember that not at all. So that unfortunately was the part of the game I was at when I was like, "Hey, I'm just going to stream where I'm
Oh,
at in my
such a
playthrough."
funny time. They'd be like, "Hey, let's stream this," and you're like in the train for
Oh.
two
I
hours.
wasn't yet because I just finished like the Key Hall Key
Oh,
chapter,
gotcha.
which would have been great to stream. I think because there's a lot like
Sure.
I think the cave is actually a really well designed
Mhm.
dungeon. There's
Yeah.
lots of good combat in that chapter. I think that's overall a really good
environmentally, it's kind of the first big transition that we've seen. We've seen like we saw caves before, and we have small towns and things like that. But like this very tropical and bright, colorful island was very different aesthetically.
You got a good ways further away from Rogueport with that chapter.
Right.
Yeah, I wish I had streamed that chapter because I found myself frustrated and like annoyed with myself. They're like, I picked something really bad to stream. Like people probably aren't enjoying this, and so my enjoyment of the train chapter was probably reduced because of those things. And it's all so much reading, very little combat. I always find it very difficult to pay attention to what NPC dialogue and while I'm streaming and stuff like that. So yeah, that section could have been a lot more fun. Although that does bring to mind one fun trope of this game. I'm not sure if it happens in every single chapter, but most chapters there's like a character who like consistently calls Mario by like something else.
A wrong name. Yeah.
He's Luigi in that one.
Yeah, he just calls him Luigi the entire time, which is so funny.
Rodriguez in the Glitz Pit.
Gonzalez.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. And like in your Yoshi
he calls you Gonzalez throughout the game.
Until the ending scene, he's like, he finally calls you Mario. He's like, but you'll always be Gonzalez to me.
Real quick, it's Cyan Vice is the YouTuber that I was talking about before. It's ScionVyse. Haven't seen any other of their videos, but I was just trying to like when like I said, I beat this game a couple weeks ago, so I was like, let me just watch like a retrospective just to like kind of get myself back in the mindset of when I was playing it a few weeks ago. So I want to make sure I shout them out. But yeah, no, like the highs and lows of this game are all over the place. I do think the highs, like whether it's the keel haul key or the Glitz Pit, or even I did see some people don't like this chapter. I really like the Great Boggly Tree in chapter 2. I specifically
love the Boggly Tree.
The visuals of that, like how like it's so starkly contrasted. I thought it was beautiful. I really liked that section.
That was a chapter I did not remember whatsoever.
So good. It must have been fun re-experiencing that then.
But yeah, in the remake, it was like, it was a totally new experience for me, basically. And I was really struck by like this interesting like desaturated gray, but then like the super iridescent, colorful like floor of the forest. It was really unique, and that just aside from say like the chapter 1 where you've got like Petalburg and stuff, which is like your obligatory like happy fields chapter, even as early on as chapter 2. You're going to new places beyond. I mean, Rogueport is, stands out on its own as well. But as early as chapter 2, you're going to these places that are really like quite distinct. Like, okay, going to the forest in chapter 2 sounds like a super unoriginal idea in most games. But when you do it in this game, like it is a really different vibe of forest, and that's cool.
Like I love it so much. Like that is one of my favorite parts. Like when I think back nostalgic to when I was playing this for the first time, this section specifically blew me away. I mean, I love the Punies so much. I had the Elder Puny as my profile pic on Discord when the game got announced. Like I love this section, and the Elder is hilarious too. She's great.
I'm disappointed with myself. I did not remember that segment. Good. Like I remembered like chapter 1, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5 the most. I remembered like the second part of chapter 7, like in the X-Nauts base. But,
just another example of just like this game having a lot of things on the screen at once. Like when you have to gather all the Punies together and have a certain amount of them on each thing. Like.
And I was worried I was going to hate that with all the different puny things, but they really don't make it that hard to manage. Like essentially, like the punies will not fall off or get separated from you unless an enemy or some other obstacle gets in your way. So whether it's like them, like you have to blow them off an edge, and then like they come back up with bubbles. Then you use flurry to like kind of blow them across. Flurry is one of the characters. Madame Flurry, we'll get into all the characters in a moment.
Madame Fleur is an interesting character for sure.
She made me very uncomfortable. The amount of jiggle on her figure is like, I like. Listen, I have nothing. I'm not a prude. Nothing against jiggle physics, if that's your thing. But it was a little weird to see in a Mario game.
In your Mario game,
and on a Cloud Lady.
Specifically, let's just say that Mario gets kissed like a lot.
He gets kissed so much. Bro has crazy riz and he says nothing. It's insane.
Mario, like almost every major female character in the game like kisses him.
Oh, Josh, you never heard anyone say Mario has crazy riz? You never heard that?
Never. That's not a sentence I'd ever expect to hear in my life. But I'm happy it exists. Mario has crazy riz. Look at that. No, but that section where the flurries, not the flurries. What are they called again? The zoomies, punies. Sorry, thank you. Yeah. I actually was surprised I hated it. I was surprised I didn't hate it. I was really worried at first that it was going to be really bad, because when you have to get 100 of them, I'm like, dear Lord, this is going to be a pain in the butt. I only failed the one section once because you kind of go into almost like a little bit of like a RTS battle mode for a second.
When they're
RTS isn't the right term, but like you go into this full on brawl between like the punies and the bees or whatever they're called, and you have to like run around with your hammer and just whack the shit out of them. And I lost the first time you had the really big battle. Like there's like two battles you have to do. I was able to do the first one no problem. The second one, when it's like 100 versus 100, that one I lost the first time just because
interesting. So you do have to use the hammer, because I had no idea if my hammer was doing anything or if it was just a matter of going in there with the right number of punies. Because the first time I went in there, I didn't have the right number and I lost.
Right.
So this, but every single time I was just like mashing my hammer, but I'm like, I'm not sure if this is actually doing anything.
It feels natural, because I was doing the same thing. I don't know if it mattered or not, but I was like, I'm helping. I'm over here smacking my hammer around. I'm doing something. I'm helping.
I can confirm that the hammer does something, because I had a much better strategy. But because you're the one that's ultimately going to do the most damage, and so I believe they would overpower the punies if you were not there.
It was 100 versus 100, so even match plus Mario.
But I think the bees are a little bit more powerful than the punies, so you are kind of like the deciding factor in the battle, as it were. So yeah, I loved the visual. It almost looked like a film negative, but with a little bit of color splashed in. I thought that was really cool. I will say, and just because we're kind of talking about the overall setting of the world, and anyway, I will say I like Rogueport. I think Rogueport's a cool town/city. My one criticism with the worlds of this game has nothing to do with the visuals or the themes or anything like that. I don't think this is as cohesive as the first Paper Mario game. The first Paper Mario game, the world felt like this. It felt like it was this continual it was all part of the Mushroom Kingdom or whatever, right? It all felt like this was all part of the same land. In this, Rogueport feels almost like it's a disembodied town compared to the rest of the world, because to get to the first chapter, Castle and Dungeon, and then the Boggly Tree in chapter 2, they're all like, you go down into the sewers and go through a random pipe, and all of a sudden, it's not totally random. You can find it. They don't make they make it easy to find, but because of that, it feels so disconnected. Then you get to the Glitz Pit, and that's connected. Like, you actually have to take a blimp to go up there. But then the very next chapter for the Pigs the Bell Tolls, that's in I forget the name of the town. You remember the name of the town?
I think
Twilight Town. Yeah. That's also in a random hidden pipe that you have to get to. The other ones all feel like part of this cohesive world, because they all are connected, whether it's via train or blimp or whatnot, or just something along those lines. Even, which is weird, because even the one where you go up to like that town where you do the General White thing, that doesn't even feel nearly as like like separate as the others do, which I don't quite understand why. The
I
Far
mean,
Outpost
in
is what it's
reality,
called.
it's probably a pretty big country, and
Oh
it
yeah,
doesn't,
yeah.
or maybe not even. I mean, I don't even know if the country's like maybe each city is just its own independent thing. I don't know, but like when you consider that you take the train for 3 days to get to Poshley
Yeah, to get to
Heights,
Poshley, yeah.
like these places could potentially be much more spread out than you think, because I mean you're just doing pipe travel. I mean Petalburg could be 3 days away as well. I mean who knows, right? Like I mean there
I
is the map, but like what is the scale of the map could
I
be
think that's
Yeah,
the
deceptive.
problem is
exactly.
there's no way to really, you can't feel the scale or size of this
Right.
world in any way, in any tangible way.
There's no like Metroidvania style design where it's like,
Right,
oh, this is how
right.
I like actually get from Petalburg back to Rogueport or something
Yeah,
like
it,
that.
it
You
Mhm.
would
know?
be an interesting thing if they somehow did this in the future, where it was like this game but like open world, where you can physically like walk to these places and like go into
That would be
different settings.
wild.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
The
I'm trying to think to what extent. I'm trying to think to what extent Origami King
Origami
is like
King,
that, because
yeah,
it has significantly larger fields. This game has a very shallow z-axis
sure,
in most areas.
Mhm.
There's not that far you can walk in each room or outdoor area, like between the front of the plane and the back of the plane. You're walking along these longer areas, whereas Origami King, you're dealing with much more expansive
yeah,
areas. And I would say that I mean there is a part where you take like a train or a tram or something. Like you do go a little further away, but it does feel like, to me it
yeah,
feels like these places are a little more connected, and
yeah.
you travel
And
these over these larger expanses to actually get there.
sure. And I can see where you're coming from Josh. I definitely feel I didn't notice it really until you said something, but there is other worlds that feel more connected, where you're taking a boat or you're taking the blimp or you're taking the
Yeah.
train versus just
Mhm.
taking like pipe travel and everything like that. So I definitely can see that. I guess in my mind, I was thinking to like, the 2D Mario games where you just have, there's an overworld or whatever, and it just randomly transitions to ice or randomly
Yeah, yeah,
transitions to
yeah.
desert, where it's all like
I
these are already broken up in the first place. So I guess I kind of
Yeah.
thought that for this mentality, but I see where you're coming from for
I
sure.
mean,
I
I
think
mean
so. Like in the first Paper Mario, it's a little bit more of a boring layout. I will give it
Sure.
that, where everything's connected to Toad Town, and they're all just like you go north to go to the first section. You might have to go straight west to go or east to the next one, so on and so forth. In this one, I think the reason why it feels so disjointed isn't even just because of the warp pipes themselves. It's because of the way you get to the warp pipes. It
It's just
feels
like
like when you go
underground.
down into the sewer itself is a little bit of a maze. Like it's a little confusing,
Yeah.
which I don't hate. Like I like the fact that you can explore the sewer, but because you feel like you're in this maze and you're not quite sure, am I going the right way or not? Is this the right place to go? Blah, blah, blah. It makes it feel like all of a sudden, like, oh, well, this is just a bonus area as opposed to being the next
Yeah.
chapter in the game.
right,
I
right. I
think
mean,
that's where I
yeah,
always got stuck
yeah.
with, or
I
not stuck with.
Yeah.
That's my gripe with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if this was a feature in the original version. I can't remember, but if in the remake, if you hit ZL, Goombella usually gives you
Oh, she gives a little
a
hint.
pretty
Yeah.
strong hint if you are lost.
Yeah. Well,
No,
also in
I think she does in the
underground.
first one too. Sorry, in
Okay.
the original, I should say. Sorry,
Yeah.
continue,
Yeah.
Jared.
No, I was going to say you also eventually unlock an area in the underground under Rogue Port that is just
Yep.
like a room of pipes that leads
Right,
to
right,
every
right.
area.
Yep, yep, yep. But definitely, I mean, I see what you're saying, because like Rogueport kind of sets the tone for the game, but then all of the other places that you go aren't necessarily all that much like Rogueport. I mean, the closest thing is probably
Sure.
Keelhaul Key, just on virtue of it, being kind of connected, by
Piratey, a little bit of
sea.
pirates.
You've got you have to go from a port to get to a place like that, so it kind of feels a
Right.
little more connected in that, and cohesive in that case. But yeah, like, but at the same time, like, I do really appreciate that every place you go is generally like pretty different from your standard.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You're going to the lava world, you're going to the desert
Sure.
world, you're going to the ice world. Like they are a more
It's
unique flavor on the whole. Like, you start off with a pretty boring one with Petalburg, but
uh,
on the whole, like, everything is like quite different
Well, I
from
would
what
say
you'd expect.
you're 100% right, Try, and I think the way they do that is they pick themes as opposed to locations. So in Mario games, they
Yeah.
do, like you said, desert, water, fire, volcano,
Hmm.
whatever you want to do, underground. In this, each chapter is its own kind of theme. Chapter 3 of Glitz and Glory, the Glitz Pit, like I said, it's kind of like an anime tournament arc. You're going up, and there's a little bit of intrigue in that. There's a mystery, and I actually really like the story of Chapter 3 quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
In Chapter 4 for the the in Twilight Town, and for the pigs the bell tolls is the name of the chapter. That one is kind of a little bit of a horror thing. The town is cursed and people are turning into to pigs, and so you have a mystery in each chapter in some way, shape, or form. Some are a little bit more mysterious than others, like uh the Great Bogley Tree isn't, there's not really much mystery to it per
Yeah,
se. But that's not a bad thing. But that one's theme is kind of more, like almost like these, two warring factions, not quite Romeo and Juliet. There's no romance in there, but you get what I'm saying. Like there's a different theme for each one, that for its storytelling, as opposed to
yeah,
using the land as its defining characteristic. And
sure, and
nothing exemplifies it better than the train
yeah,
segment. Like that is a
for sure.
3 day, that is a Murder on the Orient Express style, who done it, but in Mario.
Yeah, and I think that's the best example of the game feeling connected, because even like you were saying, each chapter having its own kind of themes is interesting, but it also, like you said, is a one way to have the game feel a little disconnected, because really the only through line in all of these chapters is Mario getting the star, right?
yeah,
Other than that, none of them have
yeah,
any relation to one another, besides just a way to have Mario going through his journey.
yeah.
Aside from, right, the train is as a chapter in itself, and then the end of Pajli, because it's like you're on the train going to this other destination, and there's a little kind of side story that's happening whilst you're on the train
Yeah.
too.
But that said, I do think they are very much intentionally going for that, where they're like
Yeah,
trying to fit an extremely episodic format.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
They're
Well, and
trying very much to make it like, the monster of the week kind of
Yeah. I
Japanese
mean,
yeah.
show
the
format.
whole game's a play, right? Even the battle sending is like a stage, right? The curtain closes on one chapter and it opens on another chapter.
Yeah,
That's it. And you know what? We should use that as a perfect transition, Jared. Thank you for that expert transition into the combat of this, because we've been going on the themes for a little bit and like the overall setting. We should move on to the combat and how this game
Mhm.
actually handles, and how you play it, both in terms, actually not just combat, but just overall gameplay. I should clarify. Um, the the this game, I would almost argue, and once again, to steal a point from that YouTuber, once again, I feel so bad that I said it before and I already forget the dude's name. I'll look it up again real quick. But he brought up a really good point, and I think it's worth repeating. And it is Cyan Vice is the YouTuber. That this game is a really good example of what a sequel is meant to be, in the sense that it takes something that the original version of the game did, and not just a slight iteration, but a really good, like a really, I shouldn't say huge, but it's a sizable iteration on what the original did. So in the original game, in the original Paper Mario, you generally have two types of attacks. You have your timed attack, and then you have kind of like they're all timed attacks, but like, it's timing it for Mario to jump on the dude's head, or
Mhm.
with, you charge up the shell and then you let go of the joystick to have it swing across. You also might have some where you have to like, wiggle the joystick back and forth, but by and large,
Yeah.
there wasn't a huge amount of variety in the way you attack. In this game, every character has a really unique thing. Like
Yeah.
Goombella is very similar to Goombario from Paper Mario. Koops is very similar to Cooper in Paper Mario. Like it's a very similar um, move set. But once you get past Coops and you go on to Madame Flurry, that's the first one that I was like, oh, this is very different. She has like
Mhm.
this aiming reticular, like a sight, and you have to keep it on the enemy you're targeting, and it moves on its own, and you have to wait until you have to hold it there. You have to keep kind of adjusting it ever so slightly to keep it on target, and that will attack the enemy. The little Yoshi you get, his, I believe, is like you just have to like mash the button, mash the
Yeah.
A button or whatever. What? A side note, what did you all name your Yoshi?
I named mine Tiny. Very original.
Tiny.
Uh,
What about you, Try?
I believe in the original version, I named him Boshi after the Boshi.
So did I.
Wow, of course
I
you
named
did.
you
Wow,
Boshi.
of course.
But in the remake, I named him Yoshter.
Yoshi.
Yoshi.
What color Yoshi did you guys get?
Oh, that's a good. I got orange.
Mine
Mine was green.
Mine was dark red with like green hair and green shoes and black pants.
Nice. I forgot about this mechanic until after I got my Yoshi, and I was like, I need to just like, should I go back? Do I just like delete my save, or do I? I'm going to restart so I get a different colored Yoshi.
Damn, you got okay. So I have it up here on from IGN.
Yeah.
The way basically the color cycle goes based on how many minutes it takes for you, but between the time you get the egg and when it hatches. So if you go through the game and you like to get green, between you getting the egg and it hatching, it has to be 0 to 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Jared, you blew through that.
Yeah,
Red
I really did.
is 6 minutes to 9 minutes. Blue is 9 to 11. Orange is 11 to 15. Pink is 15 to 18. Black is 18 to 19. And then 19 to 20 is white.
So where was red or am I just misinterpreting
like
the
5 minutes
color?
or so? That dark
Red
red
was
like...
red was in between 6 and 9 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. Damn,
So
so I really blew. I really just went right into that, didn't I?
Yeah, I went. I took me 11 to 15 minutes apparently.
I mean, I would have to say that. I mean, this is maybe a little bit beside the point, but you know, the Glitz Pit like is a little bit borderline to me in terms of like a similar situation of like, is this game kind of wasting my time a little bit because it does take a long
it takes a while to get to like the mystery of what's happening there, and you have to go through loads of battles of doing the same thing.
I do appreciate that the mystery is a slow burn though, so I appreciate that, but it does take a lot longer than you would think when the main thing you're doing is just battling and battling and battling. It's a lot of battles to get through.
I think the issue too with this specifically is in other levels and in other chapters, obviously you're doing a multitude of fights throughout that, but you're also doing a level of exploration at the same time.
Yeah.
Where when you're in the Glitz Pit, it's just, you know, go into your locker room, go to the little Game Boy Advance on the wall, do your battle, rinse and repeat like 16, 20 times or so.
Jolene says the same thing every time, does the same like glasses animation every time, walks out the door every time. You know, those little things add up, and it's kind of like
there's not a lot of exploration the player gets up to in that. I mean, there's a little bit here and there, but for the most part, you're just doing battles.
Well, on the whole, I appreciate they did something different with it, but it is a little borderline just in terms of like this is a little long, just a little long.
I could totally see that. So I felt that way at first, and then what kind of changed my opinion was the fact that the intrigue of like what was actually happening at the Glitz Pit, like where all the mysteries, where all the fighters were going, and how they kind of reveal small little bits of what's actually happening in the Glitz Pit. Like, you know, little things get pushed behind the scenes, and like I'll be honest, like they got me. Like, spoiler alert for the story in the Glitz Pit. For a long time, they kind of lead you on to make you think Jolene, kind of like Grubba, who's the guy who runs the Glitz Pit. You think he's the good guy, and Jolene, his assistant, is the one that's like doing stuff to different fighters, and you get like warnings from people being like, you better not win this next match type of thing, otherwise I'm going to get you, you're going to regret it. So you have like people threatening you. There's like this mysterious, like fighters are disappearing, and like it just, you don't really know what's going on. Like I really loved the slow burn of that. Actually, I that's why I think I ended up enjoying the chapter more, because at first I was like you, Try, where I'm like, wow, every single time Jolene's going to say the same damn thing, going to have to read the same text, going to have to fight a fight that's probably not even all that difficult. There was a couple that were a little challenging. There's a couple fights that I like. This is a bit of a tangent or a little bit of a side note, and I don't know when else to fit this in. I can't stand in this game, I don't mind it when other RPGs do it, where there's fights you're supposed to intentionally lose. This game doesn't do a good enough job of broadcasting that you're supposed to lose a fight and then you end up
Yeah.
wasting items. Like, I can't stand that. Like, 'cause I was doing
I,
well
I
enough.
Yeah, I was
Sorry.
like on the final battle, like between the phase that
Mm.
you can't win and then that you can. Like I
Yeah.
was like really on the fence of like, should I start using items or should I just let myself
Yeah.
die or would that be
I mean,
bad?
even
I don't
even early on
know.
with Dupless, it's like you're supposed to just run away from him in that first,
Yeah.
like after he like takes Mario's identity and everything.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's like I said, it's not very obvious.
I was actually really surprised too. I like the match between like those two Iron Brothers between like minor league and major league.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like Goombella like actually tells you like I think this would be a good one to run away from. And I'm like, oh, you can run away from these. I mean, to be fair, the game
yeah,
does, at least the remake does, it says like right at the beginning of a fight, can't run from this fight. But like
right.
I never would have even thought
To
I,
run.
to
Same.
run
Because
from a
you're
glitz
in a
pit
you're in a
fight.
Yeah,
tournament. You can never run from tournament fights in almost any
Yes.
game.
So I never would have thought to do that.
Same.
yeah.
Before we continue on with some of the other bits, just to list some of the other characters you can play with, you have Vivian. Vivian is super cool because
Love Vivian.
she has this basically she does like this kind of like you have to hit the correct sequence of inputs, and it does like kind of this fired attack, which will also burn the enemies. Um, she's also really cool because she is a transgender character,
Hmm.
and it was like she's like that in the original Japanese version of the game.
Yeah.
Japanese and like one other uh, region had it, and so when the sisters are making fun of her in the original version, the shadow, what are they called? The Shadow Sisters? What are they called again?
The three
The three
shadows.
shadows.
Yeah.
Um,
Beldam is always like, no, it's just the three shadows. It sounds much more mysterious that
Yeah.
way.
yeah. In the original version, they would actually like it kind of fucked up. Her sister would like dead name her and stuff, like call her
Yeah.
he and stuff like that, and be
Hmm.
just basically transphobic. And they took that out of the North American version on the original release, and in this version, in the remake, apparently they brought it back in to kind of make it obvious that she is a trans character. So I just thought that was kind of cool
Yeah.
that they like something that was in the original game and it wasn't like I don't know, just it's cool, and I like the fact
Yeah.
that like Mario's chill with it, and that's kind of like the whole story, like just being kind to people, and that's why she
Yeah.
gets won over to Mario's side.
Mario's side. Yeah.
And she ends up being a really useful character. I used
Yeah.
her a decent amount. It's funny, I had no idea she was a trans woman before doing research for the episode. I'm like, oh shit,
Mhm.
how about that? I had
Yeah,
no
yeah.
idea.
No, I love it. And like I have the line that she says here. It says, truth is, it took me a while to realize I was their sister, not their brother. Now their usual bullying feels even heavier. And it's just like those kind of like heavy
Oh,
topics are just like,
yeah.
oh, that's so heartbreaking.
And then, at the end, when you ultimately like confront Dupless, she's like, screw my sisters. Mario, you're the only person that's ever
Yeah.
been nice to me.
Yeah.
It's just so freaking heartbreaking, man. Like it's that is kind of bizarrely a theme in this game of just like
Yeah.
really heavy topics done in a very silly way. Like
Mhm.
we're gonna get to them in just a second. You have Admiral Bobbery.
Good old Bobbery.
Yeah,
Dude, his
no,
story is so dark.
Yeah.
I had no idea you could actually recruit Mrs. Mouse.
Mhm.
I had
Wait.
no idea you could do that.
Wait, what?
Yes. Yes.
Wait.
The little like
Little
Wait, she could join
mouse
your
heart.
party?
Yes.
yeah.
So no wonder I was like, there is room for another character.
Yes,
on
because
the-
you can recruit meows to your
Okay,
mouse to your
I
party.
need to boot up my original GameCube save and see if I have her or not, because I was like, there has to be another character,
The
but
way
I did
there's
not
a whole
realize
thing
that.
you have to there's a whole thing you have to do to get her. That's wild. I had no idea. I thought the same thing. I'm like, there seems like an extra slot here. So, all right, do you have anything to talk about with Mrs. Mouse, Jared? Because I don't know, or Miss Mouse, excuse me. I have
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah, Miss Mouse is fine. That one of the powers is to like sniff out treasure in the areas to try to find like secrets or like one of the big things, which is it's so odd. But there is the oh gosh, why am I blanking on the item name too? They're not revives, but they look like revives from Pokemon. Oh gosh,
Mm.
the like yellow triangles. I'm blanking what they're called. They're behind like
Oh,
everything. Like anytime,
the star
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 pieces.
Star
pieces?
pieces,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. They look like revives from Pokemon, so I keep thinking revives in my head. But yeah, those things are like behind objects all the time. So stuff like that, where you can like kind of sniff out and find some hidden treasure and hidden items and everything.
Oh, cool. That makes sense for her character as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And then Admiral Bobbery was the last character that you get. He's awesome too, because he has like his explosion is really good, and it
Mhm.
does. And he also like each character, to kind of continue on with the gameplay here. Each character has a bunch of different abilities that you can get as you level them up with the shines.
The shines,
You can
yeah.
power them up, and they're super interesting. Like they get more and more complex as time goes on. Vivian gets a move called Fiery Jinx, which is like a big multi-target move that makes enemies get
Yes.
burned and stuff like that.
End game that is like the move.
Oh my
Yes,
god,
I
yeah.
use Vivian so much. Vivian was like one of
I,
my go-to, and
I,
Coops too. I use Coops a lot. Coops' items once you level them up are
yeah,
pretty good.
I remembered using Vivian the most
Yeah,
in my GameCube playthrough. I didn't gravitate toward her as much in the Switch version though, just because like I remembered her being able to hit more targets, and so then I realized like, oh, okay, like once you unlock that, when you level her up twice, the Fiery Jinx. But I was
yeah,
like, I used Coops a ton because he's got the cheapest move that like hits
yeah.
everyone.
Yep, hits
Mhm.
everybody, and then eventually gets like his
Yeah.
shell shield that can protect Mario, and he has the move that can like essentially
Yeah.
like a ground pound. You can hit all the enemies on the ground too.
I mean, I have to confess, like for most of the game, I was pretty basic and mostly used Goombella and Coops.
Well, it's funny because I always primarily had Goombella because I went on an obsessive rant of just like wanting to document all of the new enemies to put in like the what's it called, the
Compendium or whatever.
yeah, like the compendium and everything. So I always
Mm.
had Goombella out first, usually did her little tattle attack and then swapped her with Vivian. Or
Yeah.
I think other than that, I used Vivian. And then when I got Bobbery, I used Bobbery a lot because his like second ability where he can toss his little bombs out and then they explode on the end of the next turn was really good.
I mean, I feel like Goombella can be really powerful though,
Yeah.
just because like she does 2 hits of equivalent damage, and I don't know exactly how all the math pans out, but like especially like for the majority of my run, I actually had like 2 partner power plus badges equipped. So my partners were actually stronger than Mario. I didn't like exhaustively like test all the moves or anything, but it seemed like a really consistent way to do really fast damage was like
Yeah.
Goombella just doing a regular head bonk was like pretty powerful.
That's so funny.
Or
That's
the
so funny.
multi bonk. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and two, like it really in a lot of ways feels like it's Goombella and Mario's adventure, because
Sure.
you're always like going back with the conferring with the professor between every chapter.
She gives you the hints and everything of like what to do next.
Yeah, I mean, she's like the
That's so
archaeology
interesting.
student and really wants to like figure out the mystery. So like I always want Goombella to be front and center, just because it feels like she's the
It's
one
their
that like
story.
most wants to find out what this is all about. What's the secret? You
Yeah.
know?
That's so funny, because I had the complete opposite experience. I both with her and Goombario in the first game, they can just go away. I did.
Oh
feel-
no, Goombella.
you are
it's not-
making me so sad. Goombella's
Listen,
great.
the reason I never used either of them is because they just have Mario's jump attack. It's just a repeat of Mario's
Yeah.
jump attack. So I was always kind of like, I don't need another jump attack. I need
Yeah.
things that can do things differently.
Well,
And
you know
your
what?
point though, Try, like I think you're spot on by saying it's kind of her and Mario's story. But I just never saw it that way because I never used her at all.
Used her.
But then when you bring up how like she's working with she's a student of the professor and she's trying to find the 1,000-year-old, I'm like, you know what? From a story perspective, that makes sense. I just
Well,
didn't do any of that.
you know, I guess what's kind of cool is you really can make it whoever story you want it to be, because
True.
whichever partner you have out
They'll
is
all comment on things that are
is the
happening.
one that
Yeah.
has the dialogue. And so I can see that if you gravitate toward one character or another, you see them participate in the story much more. So you perceive them as being more the
True. Yeah.
central focus of the story. So and you know, maybe that's why I just kind of defaulted to Goombella, because I liked getting the extra information from about
Yeah.
each NPC and stuff like that. So I had her out so much that it really did, to me at least, feel like she was very central
Yeah. I mean, and
to the story.
for me, it was the same way, because I same as you, Josh. I didn't use Goombella in combat because her moveset reflected Mario's so much, but I always had her out for the exact thing that Tri was saying, where it's like getting information on NPCs, or just, you know, getting the information on characters so I can put them in the compendium and I can get their health bars that show up and everything. That's primarily when I had her out. Other than that, I mean, I used the Yoshi for, I mean, movement most of the time, and especially on the
Yes.
train. I was going back and forth in the train. I had
Oh my
I had
God.
that Yoshi kid
I
out
should have
all the
done that.
time.
Oh, that makes sense. But you know, I think it's actually really interesting, Josh, that you talk so much, so glowingly, I would say, about like the different inputs for all of these varied moves. And I think in part maybe that's why I gravitate a lot toward Goombella, and
Yeah,
because me, you know, I started with Super Mario RPG. You've got action commands in that game, but it's all about figuring out the timing for just
yeah,
hitting the button again.
Yep.
And to
Mhm.
me, that is engaging enough. Like,
yeah.
and I almost feel like all of these different inputs are a needless overcomplication, and some of them are even a little bit uncomfortable. Like, I don't especially like mashing the ZR
Yeah,
trigger
mashing
for
the triggers is never a comfortable.
uh,
It's
and,
never
and the
comfortable.
worst one, I think, is Coops's powered up move that like pierces defense and hits all
Oh
enemies,
yeah,
because you have
Mhm.
to mash the stick to the left a
yep.
bunch of times. And like things like you know, like the sweet treat and sweet feast, like I
You're
think a
like
little
flicking the
unintuitive.
stick.
Like, why am I flicking the stick to the left and
Yeah,
throwing stars to the
I
right?
was like, my Joy Cons already have drift. This is not helping them
Well,
at
so
all.
I know what I realized. So with the sweet tree thing, that is something we forgot to touch on too. As you get the you know the
Star
stars,
powers.
you get star powers, and each star gives you a new star power. They consume a certain amount of star power bar. And the sweet treats, that's the one that, like, you know, the items will fall from the sky and you can heal, but if you get a poison mushroom, it pauses for a while, right? Just making sure I'm remember
Yep,
this
yep,
correctly.
yep.
Correct.
Now, know what I realized that I feel dumb about? So when you guys did it, did you flick the your joystick back and forth every time to throw?
I just
Oh,
held and then let go, and then held and
you,
then let go.
you just
Yeah.
have to flick it to the left. You don't have to flick it. You don't have to like follow through to the right.
So you know what's fun? So I didn't follow through to the right, but what I would do is I would flick it to the left and then it go back to the center. I thought that you had to do that for every time you threw. So for about 75% of the game, you could literally hear
Oh.
like like when I'm playing, because I'm flicking the joystick back and forth so much. And then I realized, oh, if I just hold it, they throw it faster and I don't have to kill my hands.
Yeah,
Wait,
I was
wait,
like,
can you just
I
hold
just
it to the
held it.
left? I don't understand. What are you saying?
You can just literally hold the joystick to the left and Mario will just fucking chuck the shells crazy fast. And then when you
What?
want to stop,
Oh,
yeah.
I did not
No,
know
I
that.
did. I
That's
thought. Oh,
crazy.
so that's super unintuitive. So I guess that gets kind of a bit more to my point, where I'm just like, I'm just old school, and I liked how Mario RPG did it. I thought it was enough to just focus on the timing of the hit and not worry about all these varied
Yeah.
input mechanics. I actually kind of prefer that. And let me tell you something else that I actually did toward the end of the game. And this could maybe be another interesting point of discussion, just in terms of, you know, you wouldn't think of it being like a hardcore like RPG build kind of game, but it actually can be kind of interesting in
Especially
terms
with
of
like all
what
the
you
badges and
choose,
everything.
what you choose to do at level up, and what you do with the badges. And what I ended up doing toward the end of the game, I actually used well, I had a couple of like Power Plus badges on me and my partners. In addition to, I used the badge. This was in like the last like chapter and a half, maybe. I used the badge where Mario is no longer harmed by jumping on spikes. In addition, in
Yes.
addition to the badge where you get 1 extra damage for jumping, but you can't use the hammer.
Oh,
So,
interesting. I use the hammer so much.
but you know what I didn't factor in? Ghost enemies. They're like kind of like a flame.
Yeah.
You still can't jump on those.
Because they're not
So
technically spikes. You
so
still get hurt
those
from
were
fire.
Well, you can get badges that will let you jump on flames too.
okay. So
There are badges that'll let you jump
I
on the other
I
other dangerous
okay, I don't think I
surfaces.
had that one, but like it was a little inconvenient, but not like a huge thing. I just use another character to get it. Usually Coops, to just like drive through all of those ghosty flames. But like
Yeah.
for the most part, I was able to get more attack out of my jump, which is just that timing mash, which is what I'm looking for because I want it to be like Mario RPG.
Mhm.
And again, like maybe that's why I also gravitated toward Goombella because it's just that timing mash, right? It's more like the original Mario RPG, and I don't hate all the varied. I mean, there's a few I don't like or think are a little unintuitive, but on the whole, I don't hate the extra input methods. But
Just makes these a little
they
more
don't
complex.
they just don't do anything for me. They don't add
Yeah.
anything for me. They're just a
Mhm.
little they're a little bit of a hassle, to me.
Um so some other stuff we've talked a lot about the combat here for that part of the gameplay. We should also touch on what they do for world exploration and traversal, because I do think what makes Paper Mario unique as an RPG is that they don't entirely get rid of the Mario platforming aesthetic, and they don't
Yeah.
make you do twitch reflexes. I mentioned this in the Paper Mario episode, and you see it kind of really exemplified in the Mario and Luigi games on the handhelds. But like they still expand upon that idea here, where in the first Paper Mario you have your characters and they can do different things. Like the fish will let you. I forget her name already. Sushi lets you swim around. Lackluster lets you kind of float over spikes, and like Watt will light things up, and Parakarry can let you fly. They don't have your characters necessarily do any movement things, with the exception of your mini Yoshi, or I'm just gonna call him Boshi. I called him Boshi as well.
Yeah.
It was also Boshi.
That's the right.
Canonically Boshi.
That is,
That's the
he's
right name.
canonically Boshi. Let's be honest here. But like other than that, the characters don't really do much, with the exception, I think. What is it? Is it Vivian can make you like go into the shadow and like kind of get sucked underneath for a little bit?
Yeah.
And there's a
So-
couple like narrative points where that comes into play, but I mean,
But for the most part, the characters don't do as much to help you traverse the world. But what they replace that with is they kind of trade off on that onto the novelty of Mario being paper. He can roll up into a ball and roll under different things. They even have sections where like you have to be rolled up to kind of go down almost like a pachinko style, like little mini maze and stuff like that. You can turn sideways, which allows you to go maybe down some alleyways that have like thin that you couldn't normally go down.
Just go straight through jail bars.
Yes, go straight through jail bars or through sewer grates to get down to the other side of the sewer. Like there's lots of cool ways to explore with that.
And that really justifies the paper aesthetic beyond just
they really
I'm
leaned into
intelligent
paper with
systems
all
and I
this.
don't know how to make a 3D game, right? Like they lean into it much more in this game and do even further, like especially starting with Sticker Star. Even though Sticker Star is not the best game, like I feel like really starting with Sticker Star and Color Splash and then on to Origami King, they every subsequent game like leans into the paper aspect even harder, so I think that's really cool.
Well, and now that I'm thinking about it, each of the characters, while they don't help you with like the physical act of traversal, they do help you with exploration. Coops with the shell allows you to, get items from across the way or hit switches that are farther away that you can't reach. Madame Flurry allows you to, she can blow wind out. She can blow gusts of wind, which I actually somewhat hate, because there'd be lots of times where like you would have to
You're
just
just,
blow random
you're
things
just
to
guessing.
yes.
You're just guessing.
I was
Maybe
like,
this
you're
is
just
a
guessing.
flurry thing.
Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes like there's later on sections when you're like doing the train one where you're just blowing paper off of a door that's being blocked, but it's definitely not obvious that you're supposed to blow the paper off of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or like even like there's a tree stump in, I think it's it might have been,
Oh yeah.
I think it's in, I forget where it is. It's either in the bog or it's in like Twilight Town. I forget. Vivian, like I said, already like, you know, you kind of go into a shadow, so you can use that to like, if you're on a conveyor belt and there's a wall in the way, you can suck, you know, she can like suck you down and like, well, that sounded gross. She can she can bring you into the shadow and you can go underneath it and whatnot. Then Admiral Bobbery can blow things up. Each of the characters, they help you basically change the world around you, change the landscape
Yeah.
around you in some way, shape, or form.
And I thought
There's a
that
handful
the
that help with
final
traversal, but yeah.
I thought the final dungeon was actually like a really good gauntlet of like
Yeah.
showcasing their unique abilities. I mean, the final dungeon was maybe a hair long, but it was, I thought it was actually quite engaging with like really fully exploring the extent of what kinds of puzzles you can create
Right.
with
Well,
every character's ability.
yeah, I was like, not only that, but just all of your abilities and all of your arsenal kind of being put to the test as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And real quick, I do have to comment. We're kind of past like the themes and story-ish section, because like the story of the game, it's pretty good. Like we said, I guess we didn't really touch on the story. We'll kind of comment on that a little bit towards the end. But I got to just shout out Admiral Bobbery, because his story is so
sad.
like beautiful but tragic and sad. And we're just going to put a light spoiler wall up here for if you don't want to know spoilers for the story of the game or any of the other characters. Just letting you know, we're probably going to discuss it a little bit more openly here, you know, almost 2 hours into the recording. So take that as it is.
Yeah.
But like Admiral Bobbery, he is like he's a navigator pretty much. He knows how to navigate ships and like steer them and whatnot. And he, you know, he's an old sailor, and you have to recruit him so that way you can sail to Keyhall Key. But he won't do it because when he was last out at the sea, his wife died. He was gone for too long, and his wife dies. And so he can't forgive himself for not being there for the love of his life when she needed him the most. And you find a letter that she wrote him, which is a little weird. Not that she wrote a letter, but the fact that like there's
the bartender like kept it. He kept it.
The bartender kept it for like 10 years or some shit. And he's like, I just didn't need it just yet. So you get it from the bartender, and then you give it to Bobbery, and it's like she basically says like, you know, you shouldn't, you know, if you're reading this and I've already passed, like you shouldn't feel guilty for this. Like I've loved every minute with you, and like the sea made you who you are, so please don't give that up, type of thing. Like really beautiful, like touching. And there's lots of stuff like Admiral Bobbery's got that character moment. Vivian has her thing with her sisters, and like kind of like, which is not apparent in the original North American version, but like what that quote you told me, Jared, really just man. Madame Fleury doesn't have like a big story, but I like the idea that she's like this. She used to be a star, and she kind of became disillusioned with stardom and whatnot, and then she decides to kind of come back into stardom after the adventures of the game. Then Coops is just kind of like, honestly, he kind of looks like a shitty Marty McFly, where he's just kind of like
he is a little Marty McFly coded.
You know, he's a little in over his head with his girlfriend, and but his girlfriend still kind of likes him. His thing was just about building confidence, and his like also getting revenge for who he thought his dad was eaten by what is it?
Hooktail.
Hooktail. Thank you. Yeah. Hooktail the dragon, and you find out that he was eaten, but he's not dead. He just kind of was living in his stomach for like 20 years or some shit like that.
Yeah, great. The Hooktail fight is wild too, where he's like, "I'll let you smell my feet." It's like one of the things.
And and then the battle expands into the audience. You know, it actually eats the audience, and you like.
Did you know what Hooktail's weakness is? Like they hint at it in the dungeon. Did you ever figure that out? I looked up a guide. I didn't figure it out on my own.
I mean, it was in the remake, at least. I thought it was fairly obvious. There's a it's actually isn't Colorado one of the characters from the first Paper Mario, right?
Yes, he
You
is.
can
Yeah.
find the dry bone skeleton of in I think in the
Oh,
same
I didn't put
room.
that together. That's funny.
Yeah, in the same room as where you have that like massive like dry bones fight. Um, there's a you read the skeleton and it says Hooktail is afraid of anything that ends in afraid of a thing that starts in F and ends in Rog, and there's a badge somewhere in this castle that
Yep.
will
Change
help
your sound
you do
effects.
that. So I don't remember if it spelled it out as clearly in the original version, but
If
if you
they
found
did,
that,
then I'm gonna feel real dumb for not noticing that,
well,
because
I mean,
I
it might have been something you wouldn't have necessarily felt compelled to
Right.
examine, but once you found that out, and then the badge is free to equip, there's no badge
Right.
points required. So it was to me, it was fairly obvious, at least in the remake.
it was not obvious to me, but once again, maybe it was there, and I just like, because I did stream this game, so maybe I was like reading chat and I did it.
Right.
I hit through the dialogue box a little bit too quickly. Um, but yeah, so like just to wrap up the conversation on the gameplay section, what I really like about this game is that it really is a step forward for Paper Mario, where not only do they keep the same mechanics from the first game, but they iterate
Mhm.
on them a lot by adding a lot of new different interactivity types. I know, Try, you said you weren't a big fan of how many there were.
Yeah,
I actually really liked it because it kept the game interesting for me.
Yeah, a lot of variety.
A lot of variety, and like if you wanted to, like, it's very clear though, you can beat the game with just the bare bones attacks, like the same
Yeah.
ones from Paper Mario. So that's kind of cool that they still designed it around that play style. Like you don't have
yeah,
to, use Vivian, or you don't have to use Bobbery or anything like that. You can get through the game predominantly with the characters you want to play as. And I also just like how they kind of expanded the exploration. And in the first one, it's just the characters will physically move Mario to different locations. In this one, they physically change the world, and Mario has new abilities, which
Mhm.
you talked about this a bit on Stream Try, so I might throw it over to you. How does Mario get some of his new paper abilities?
oh man,
Oh.
it's really really funny actually. And I completely forgot about this until playing the
Mhm.
remake.
Oh,
But
that's fun.
they do the same gag that A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening do, where you encounter this this little demon who uh like curses you with expanded abilities. And
Yeah.
so yeah, you free these demons like locked in a chest, or I don't think they're well, I should point out actually that I think it's I don't know if anything. This is a big tangent. Sorry, but while I'm saying the word demon, I feel like they refer to the horror that is locked behind the 1,000-year door, a demon at first, and I feel like that was the first. It is maybe the only, I don't know, time that like anything has been referred to as a demon in Mario. Like
Maybe.
just
Yeah, I
kind of
was like, it's
another
possible.
example of how this game is kind of hardcore, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so you unlock these black chests where this this voice inside is like, oh, like, come on, you really want to hear you really want to free me. And they always play off of it, because like Mario as a silent protagonist is clearly saying like, I think you're trying to pull my leg here. And then they respond to say, what, curse you, what are you talking, I would never. And the last, I think the last one you get to is, he's like, wait, you've had this happen before. Well,
I
now
was,
it's all
I,
I've been in here forever,
yeah.
dreaming of nothing but what I'm going to say to the fool who frees me, and now you've just spoiled it all.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
was.
so they're like, they're like, "Mwahaha, you could turn into a paper airplane. How embarrassing for you!"
Yeah, I love these every time, and I was gonna comment on the last one when you get to boat mode, because he's so upset because Mario is like, oh, I've essentially done this before, and he's like, can we just can we just like go along with the motions, right? Can we just do the thing? And the Mario's like, okay. And then he's like, I fooled you. I tricked you. And now I'm going to curse you. And it's so good. It's so funny.
At the end, he says something to the effect of like, and thanks for letting me do this.
Yeah, he's like, thanks, but I didn't curse you too much, did I? I'm so sorry.
By the way, I have to ask, did the GameCube version like have like visible text prompts next to like the platforms for like plane and boat and stuff? Because in the remake, at least, when the command for turning into a boat is boat, and then when you want to get off of the water, the button prompt says unboat.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy.
It doesn't even. It literally you go onto the platform, you hit the button to do it, and you just do it. It doesn't tell you a prompt at all. You just
I like unboating.
Yeah, unboat.
That's really great. Yeah. I mean, if it did say it, I didn't notice it, but that's pretty fantastic. Boat and that. So that reminds me of two things. One, the sense of humor that I mentioned it in the Mario RPG episode. Very Looney Tunes-esque. Like that is a very Looney Tunes style of joke, and I love that in the games. It's funny because I literally was just editing the Super Mario RPG episode on the day we were recording this. So put that. So it's kind of surreal that we're recording episode 4, and I'm just in like halfway through editing the first episode of Mario Month. Anyway, the other thing that reminds me of like the unboat thing. This is a very personal anecdote from my own life. When I was a kid, I had a buddy who's actually been on the show, Tristan. Him and he's been on the show a handful of times, and we basically we would hang out every day after school. And he came over to my house one day, and my youngest brother Matt comes up to him. He goes, "Hey Tristan, check out this thing I made." And he made something out of Kinects and Legos. You guys know what the Kinects is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Kinects and Legos. And he goes, but he doesn't call it that. He goes, "Hey Tristan, check out what I made. It's half Lego, half not Lego." And just it's boat, half unboat. Just it referenced a memory in my head that only pertains to me, but I just love the half Lego, half not Lego.
Someone at Nintendo Treehouse fought for unboat and won.
Yeah, they really did. That was their one claim to glory in this game. They're like, I'm the unboat guy.
I want to know who localized that. I always find it weird. This is a bit of another side tangent, and we should probably starting to wrap this up, considering we're over 2 hours, and it's like past midnight for me. There's been a weird contingent online of like anti-localization stuff, and it's really freaking weird.
Oh, interesting.
Well, it's generally people who are like, there's a weird combination of like, I'm not to get into any too heavy topics, but like the weird thing is it'll be like they just don't understand the logistics of like why localization is important. Like a lot of them just want it to be direct translations. I'm like, well, you can't always do that.
Right.
And I've told this anecdote before here on the show, and it came from the show originally when I interviewed Jeremy Blaustein. And I feel like I've probably said this on a few episodes you've been on, Tri. So I apologize if you remember, if you've heard the story a few times, but just to reiterate, Jeremy Blaustein was the localizer for Metal Gear Solid. He was the localizer for Symphony of the Night. He also did Silent Hill 2 and 3. Like he's one of the first people to really, I shouldn't say the first, but he's a big name in localization from back in the 90s and early 2000s. He also did localization for the Pokemon cartoon.
Oh, interesting.
There's a brother, Professor Oak has a brother, and he speaks in puns a lot. I don't know if he does in the English version, but in the Japanese version, he does a lot of puns. And in the Japanese version, he made a joke upon where he says Pimanchu instead of Pikachu. And Pimanchu, it means steak chew. Like it'd be like Piman or like P or Piman means steak. So he took, a pun of Pikachu and turned it into steak chew, essentially, which you can't, like, I get the joke because that works in Japanese because Pikachu and Pimanchu are so close, but that doesn't work in English. Steak chew makes
Steak
no
chew
goddamn
doesn't work.
sense.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so how do you localize that? So he talks about how like he tried to ask his boss, like, how do you want me to localize this joke? Because this isn't going to make sense if I translate it directly. And he got in trouble for his response. And you can go back and listen to that episode if you really want to
Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean,
hear that.
I mean, it's actually interesting you bring up localization with all this because I mean, for one, anything that is heavily humor based, like really, if this is a cultural joke, like a joke that is just in the zeitgeist because of the TV that people watch or the games that people play or the food that they eat and their country and language and stuff like that, like you want to give people an equivalent feeling
Right.
and laugh that is based on their own personal language and life experience, and that's just so key and just like so intuitively obvious to me. And I don't understand like yes, there are aspects of a culture that you want to preserve, and there are aspects of a culture that you want to
Mhm.
convey a related feeling for the target culture. And it's a balance, and it's localizer's job to know what that balance is. I mean, obviously, if something takes place in Japan, you do want to preserve some of that stuff. Paper Mario doesn't take place in Japan. This is very much a tangent, so I'll keep it short. But like I played God of War Ragnarok last year, and it there was one or two times in like a side quest because there's a ton of dialogue, like unique dialogue that's only spoken in like side quests and stuff, and there were like some really lame puns, like at least once or twice. I can't even remember what it was, but what I do
Mm,
remember is thinking like these characters are not speaking English. Like they are speaking
Yeah.
English for our benefit, but they're like speaking ancient Norse or something, right? like they are not
mhm,
speaking English. What that joke they just made would not be working in the language they are speaking. So like I'm thinking through it in this way of like you shouldn't make language puns in that way if we're assuming they're speaking another language or something like that. So I just thought that was kind of poor writing. But like in Mario, it doesn't take place in any specific world or anything. Like we can make the humor and stuff work in a way that we understand. And what's I always think back to I like I said I was like in sixth grade when the first Mario RPG came out, and that was like the first time that that I really became aware of like the fact that I was I was just thinking like, wow, like I know this game was made in Japan, but it is so funny.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
and
mhm.
no, this game's hilarious.
Ted Woolsey wrote it. Ted Woolsey. Some people have mixed opinions
Woolseyisms.
on some of the things that he did, and like especially in like Final Fantasy and stuff. But I think he was like especially for like he was a real hero of early localization. I think.
Oh,
I think
yes.
I think he did tremendous work with extremely large limitations, especially when you consider, dealing with limited space on a cartridge, and when you can say so much more in
Mhm.
Japanese with per text box with
Right.
relative
Versus
to
English.
English.
Yeah.
I think he did fantastic work, and I just remember it being very intuitive to me to understand, like, wow, like the person who wrote the English text in this game, like, had a really difficult job of like, I think this is funny, but like it probably was really different in Japanese, and I actually actively appreciated like the effort that went into that to make it enjoyable for me as an English speaker. And I was like, I want the person that wrote this game to write every game,
Mhm.
So that I really appreciate that and all the thought and effort that goes into making me have the same feeling that a Japanese person would feel reading in the original Japanese in a way that I can understand. But
Mhm.
I'm not saying I don't want Japanese culture, Japanese experience in there. I do want it where it makes sense, but it is a balance. I think on the whole, localization has figured out that balance at this point.
Mhm.
Um, and And honestly, it's probably a lot better than it was even back in the day when, they would like, a lot of games, they just come up with a whole different scenario. But I'm going off the topic of Paper Mario.
No, no, it's okay. The last thing to put a button on the localization talk. One thing that Jeremy talked about on our episode. I mean, that episode, by the way, was like 3 years ago. I think it was like episode 201. I literally
Wow.
looked it up and then I closed out the tab. It's episode 206. Episode 206 from December 13th, 2021. He mentioned it in there, and I think it's a really good point. And that's how we can close out the localization part here. Was localizers don't get enough credit, not because of just the translation, but they should be credited as writers, because
Right.
they aren't just taking, like, they can't always just take direct translations. They have to change. They have to make it like palatable to the audience that they are localizing it to.
Yep.
And Jeremy was very passionate about on the episode. Like, if you are localizing something in Japan, he's like, yes, I can speak Japanese and I have lived in Japan for 20, 30 years or whatever it was, he said, but I still shouldn't be the one to localize it. You should get someone a native speaker to localize it, because they know more of the nuances and intricacies of the culture that they are translating it for. And likewise, he does a lot of stuff. It helps him that he knows American culture well because he grew up here, and he speaks Japanese so well, and he's lived in Japan for so long. So it makes it easier for him to do Japanese to English translations, but he would never do an English to Japanese one for that same reason. I always kind of respect that. And he just talks about, they are writers, but they're never credited as writers. And it's something he's very passionate about. And I agree with him on. I'm not even trying to say that to be nice to him. I loved getting to chat with Jeremy. That was it. Really, he was awesome to talk to. I mean, it's almost 4 years ago since I spoke to him. Anyway, we should, I know, right? We should start wrapping up this episode, y'all. This is over 2 hours in. So we've talked about the combat. We've talked about the world building. We've talked about the overall, the visuals too. The music didn't stick out to me too much on this one. Like, it's not that it was bad by any stretch, but like, there's a couple sections that I really, really enjoyed. But other than that, like, music is always something, and I've said this on a bunch of my episodes. I have a hard time. I almost think I need to, in preparation for the episodes, go back and listen to the soundtrack before we record. Because it's so hard for me to be like, like 3 weeks afterwards to be like, what was great? This one specific track when I was in the middle of stream. It's a little bit hard to reference it. But does anybody have any thoughts on the music at all?
Yeah, well, because I played around a lot with this, because there is the badge in the settings that can go from the remastered tracks on the remaster to the original tracks. So like any new area I went in, I swapped back and forth to kind of get a lay of what what the new tracks were versus the old ones, and if I had any kind of like recollection for the old ones. And the new ones are great. I think they do a good job. I think there's certain areas that stuck out to me for some reason, like Rogueport's original GameCube soundtrack I had on, because it just, like, I don't know why that one specifically I remembered a lot, so it was good to have that like nostalgia going back. But they did a good job on the remix tracks in a lot of these areas. I really liked them.
Yeah, a lot of the instruments. What's the word? Instrumentation.
There you go.
All the instrumentation actually sounded very, in the remake, not very reminiscent of Origami King, actually, but still, like, the bass compositions on the whole don't do that much for me. I think Rogueport is pretty good. I do really like the vibe, both in the original and in the remake of the Under Rogueport. I think that's just
both of those tracks are really good.
Very cool, mysterious theme. It's just a good bop. The main tracks that I actually really remembered from back in the day, the only two that really burned into my memory were like the Dupless battle theme and the Lord Crump, like with the Magnum.
A lot of horns in that one.
Yeah, those stood out to me, and I was actually. I also bounced back and forth during some of that Dupless stuff. With the original and the remake, because like I was having a really like when I heard the new version of the Dupless battle, I was like, man, this doesn't I don't know,
Yeah.
the drums didn't really hit in the same way, like the
That's how I
percussion.
felt about Rogueport. I was like, there's something about like I knew how this area sounds in my brain, and it's just slightly off where it doesn't feel like that
Yeah, I
place
mean
anymore.
the remake tracks are absolutely a lot more elaborate,
Sure.
I would say, but certain I don't know. I think it was just something about the beat of the original Dupless
Yeah.
battle just like stood out to my mind and a lot more, and like that is always like the track I think of with that game.
Yeah.
I think in part because it kind of reminds me a little bit of the weapon boss battle theme in the original Super Mario RPG, where it's kind of got a little goofy circusy sound to it.
Yep.
It made me
Mm.
think of a game whose soundtrack I like a lot more. But yeah, on the whole, like I do feel like the first two Paper Mario games, the music is it's good, but like there's very few tracks that have like burned into my memory and really stand out. It wasn't until Origami King where I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I freaking love the music in this game
Yeah.
for that series for me.
Yeah, I will say that especially in RPGs, it's really easy to have like a battle theme that's bad and have it be annoying. This one is good. I like the battle theme. It doesn't get annoying with how much you do battles, but it could have been hit or miss if this if this battle theme
It
wasn't good.
also, and I'm pretty sure the original version did this. It also changes the instrumentation and tone quite significantly
Hmm.
between chapters
Yes. Mm-hmm.
for the battle theme
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
and the
Which is
victory.
cool. I love.
And
I
every boss generally has a unique battle theme, or at least
mhm.
the major bosses do. So
Yeah,
Well,
like Hooktail has his own theme, and I'm pretty sure all of the bosses have a unique theme to them.
yeah,
well, and speaking of bosses, to wrap up our discussion, I think our final segment before we go into kind of final thoughts is just a little touch on some of the bosses. And I guess like I was thinking about it while you guys were talking about the music. I'm like, what's something that we forgot to bring up? With is there anything we forgot to bring up? And it got back to the combat, and we touched on this. But in combination with the bosses, also the fact that all the combat takes place on a stage and the audience is interactive with some of the combat, with some of the
Mm-hmm.
battles, how like some of the bosses will eat members of the audience
yep,
and gain
Yep.
health back or gain powers, or how some of the audience will just throw shit at you on stage.
Yeah, it's so good.
Now, I so when I was playing, I couldn't. I glazed over. I shouldn't say glazed over. I actually skipped through part of the tutorial. Is there a way that you can stop the audience from attacking you? I could have sworn there was like a button that you can
Yeah,
hit.
yeah,
it's X. Usually it's X, and that's hit or miss sometimes because sometimes the audience will give you items that will benefit you, like health or things like that. And because I think for the most part it's like rocks and they're throwing things that can damage you, my brain just
yep,
automatically like defaults to hit X, and then before I can like figure out or if I put together, oh wait, no, that's an item, that's a toad, and I just go
yeah.
smack the toad with my hammer.
I think I successfully got one good item in the
Yeah,
entire
yep,
game
yep.
from the audience because I was just X every
Yeah.
time.
I was like, I'm
See,
not out here trying to lose health. I'm gonna when that button prompt comes up, I'm hitting it.
I couldn't figure it out because I played on an emulator and I was playing on with my PS4 controller. So every time the button prompt comes up, I'm like, I don't remember which button to hit
Oh
for this,
no,
and I
no.
don't. So I never stopped the audience once ever through the entire playthrough.
Oh
Not
man.
once. It was always
Oh, so you're
they
getting
either
smacked by
always hit
rocks
me.
for like 28 hours.
Yep. Oh my gosh, it was
Oh
just silly.
no.
So yeah, that was like that for the entire game. But I'll, I was of two minds with this. First, I actually hated the audience thing. I'm like, why are you bringing in this like third party thing that now I have to keep track of just to see? Like, I still don't really like it all that much. I think it's
Mhm.
an unnecessary complication. I don't think it detracts so much anymore. But I do remember, like, I don't think it's good either. Like, I don't think it does anything
The
beneficial to the game. I
they
understand that I like the stage aesthetic. I
Yeah.
don't really like the audience interaction. Like, until the bosses start eating the audience members, it just felt superfluous. And even
I
then,
was
I think you could have gone the whole game without having to interact with the audience. And then when they break the fourth wall with the bosses eating the audience, it would have been a lot more of a reaction from me.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, and you don't even need to. You're right. How you don't even need to interact with the audience throughout the entire game. I actually did a lot because if you appeal, the audience is what adds to your star power. So I would use my star power a lot and then take a turn to appeal to build that back up. But you're right. I mean, someone can go through this whole game and then never interact with the audience aside from hopefully hitting the rocks that don't get thrown at them.
I did use the appeal, but that was about it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was really stingy with my star points, so I didn't actually appeal a lot because I'm sitting on like full star points most of the time until I really need it. But I definitely agree with what you're saying. Like, it's a good idea, but its implementation is maybe a little bit half-baked. I will say, not to keep banging the Origami King drum.
I really
freaking love that game. Its battle system is actually really well integrated with the audience mechanics because
interesting.
You have to like solve a puzzle during combat, like to align the enemies in an optimal fashion to do maximum damage. And if you can't figure out that puzzle within the time limit, you can actually throw out coins to entice the audience to like jump up onto the battlefield and partially solve the puzzle for you.
That's funny.
Which is like, I went through the game for a while being stubborn about, but then I realized, like, wait, they're giving me more money than I actually need to spend. I'm supposed to do this, like, because early on it's like really easy to solve the puzzle, but like as it goes on, it gets like actually really hard. So like it's actually, you spend money to make the audience interact with the battle like in a very clear and direct way. So I thought that was actually that I think is a more complete realization of the idea started in Thousand Year Door.
Yeah. So the last thing, like I said, I did want to touch on some of the bosses, specifically just kind of the final boss, and just kind of get both of your takes on the final boss. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name. Hold on,
Shadow Queen.
The Shadow Queen. Thank you.
Yep.
I love the fact that Peach turns evil for a hot second. I know that she's possessed, but she looks fucking badass. Like,
hell
yeah!
I love the Shadow Queen Peach aesthetic. I wish like that came up in other games. Like if there was a Smash costume of her, like that would have been so cool.
Oh yeah.
That would have been so. I also enjoyed the overall fight with it. I liked that it was very the crowd work actually made sense in it. My only issue with it is like the second phase where the first phase where you have to purposely get killed or like lose all your health in the first phase.
Yeah.
And then Mario suddenly he gets basically, freaking Dragon Ball Z Spirit Bomb, and he gets all the power back.
Energy.
Lend me your energy, Krillin. And then the second phase, she's invulnerable and you have to just outlast her for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that I'm not a fan of either. But other than that, I really enjoyed the final boss. It was a really good, solid challenge. And it really made you use a whole bunch of different things, and also like a whole bunch of different tactics, I should say. And also like the fact that like she has like all those hands that show up, so you can either choose to attack the hands or her.
Yeah.
I think I ended up focusing on her more often because the hands spawned so quickly. I'm like, this isn't even worth my time.
I mean, I used Vivian's Fiery Jinx, and that with my setup with like two partner Power Plus badges, like that instantly got both hands. So I
was using a lot of things like that too.
Yeah, I had Vivian. Like I was like wondering like how would you do this fight with another? I mean, I'm not sure if Koops could have potentially. I actually don't know if like the hands would have counted as like a ground enemy or not, but like it just seemed like Vivian definitely seemed like the way to go for that fight to me.
Yeah, I also use Vivian in this fight as well, just because of that power. Is just like, especially in fights like this, where there's like, you know, main boss and then multiple tendrils of boss, similar to like the pirate skeleton guy, where you if you can do multiple hits at once and just do a big
Oh yeah.
AOE attack of like
Yep,
multiple
yep.
things, that's usually the way to go.
Yeah, and actually, I thought, you know, I was saying that, you know, I kind of see it as like Mario and Goombella's story, but actually, I really liked that I beat the final boss with Vivian because like Belden
Because of
and
the sisters and
and
everything.
Marilyn were there, and it seems like they are like the same race or type of creature that the Shadow Queen was, because like they were her original servants, right? So
Mhm.
I actually thought it was really fitting in that case to beat the final boss with Vivian and have her
Yeah.
present for like the final conversation scenes in that arena room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have any other final thoughts on the boss before we wrap up here?
No.
No, not
No?
not on the bosses. No.
Any other final comments in general on the game before we wrap up? This is just kind of final thoughts. Anything that we didn't touch on that you want to touch on? Jared, I'll start off with you. Final thoughts, and is there anything that we didn't discuss that you'd like to dive into?
Yeah, just one thing was the remake obviously came with like a multitude of quality of life changes
Mhm.
from the original. You know, I brought up the teleport room where you can go to each individual area of the pipe. That's a remake exclusive thing. That's not something that's in the original, which I hadn't realized that that's not the case. Which if someone was playing the original, I can see how it is more tedious to go underground and find those each of those
Oh
individual
gosh.
pipes.
Now I understand why you were so mad
Yeah,
about General White.
right.
General
Where
White is not a problem with that teleport
yes,
room.
where there's a room that just has a pipe to each one of the areas, and you can easily go
Well,
back to any of the
I
areas.
had that teleport pipe for the most part, but it still was like you just had to guess which one you had to go to. I wasn't a fan.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the one in this room, they're all numbered. So they're numbered 1 through 7, and they're all coordinated to whatever level that they're or chapter that they're associated with.
Oh yeah, in the original they don't have numbers on it. You just you have to guess test and revise
Oh,
the first time.
interesting.
But like after that, you just kind of remember which one. It's not that hard to remember, but
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and like little things where you can like hit your hammer in forward directions like that are more reflective to like the modern Paper Mario games and everything. The music we talked about, I think the catalog they made a little more streamlined, as well as the ability to like swap partners in the overworld. It's just like a button you hold down, and there's like a wheel that you can just
Yeah.
scroll through to immediately swap your partners, which is a lot of fun. But there's a lot of quality of life things added to the remake versus the original. But no, it was great. I told Josh that this is like a remake that I had been waiting for so long, and it's funny is like once it happened, it was like I didn't play it because I was like, oh, I can play it anytime, right? I have it now. So it's like, and I never played it. So this was like the perfect excuse to like get off your ass, play this game that you absolutely love. I played the first part and then got distracted by other things and games for the podcast and everything. But this is truly a game that I love. And going back to it now, I can kind of see a little bit of things that are wrong with it, like a little bit of the cracks within the game. But like Josh said, the highs are so good, and the storytelling is so good in certain aspects, like with Bobbery's backstory and some of the other characters' backstory, that they touch on such human topics that
Mm.
this is the kind of stuff that I miss, that I feel like we slowly lost as the Paper Mario games were going for. A lot of that characterization and a lot of that like uniqueness and human aspect to a lot of these characters too, which is why I love Thousand Year Door so much.
I'll go next, and You'll get the final word on it as the guest here is, as the other guest. I mean, uh, I think you hit the nail on the head, Jared, with the human aspect of it. I think
Yeah.
from what I'm hearing from both of you, and just kind of actually like I had the character pages up for like, here's all the playable characters in the other Paper Mario games.
Mhm.
And after Thousand Year Door, there is nothing. There's like a couple in like what is it, Super Paper Mario,
Yeah.
and then there's none in Sticker Star.
Yep.
And then you have the ones back in the new one, Origami King. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Almost forgot about that. But I can see why people like this game so much. I do think there's a little bit of nostalgia goggles on some of it, like just on the fandom. I'm not saying for people who like it, but I do think, the rap, like whenever there's a new Paper Mario that comes out, everyone's always like, well, it's no 1,000-year door, you know. And this is always like the staple. This is like the pedestal that it gets put on. And while I do think, like, if I had grown up with this, I could see why people have the nostalgia goggles of it. So while I don't think it's necessarily as good as the people who praise it like so incessantly because it's so nostalgic for them, I don't think it's quite as good as they say it is. I know for a fact that I shouldn't say for a fact, I am very confident that if I had played this when I was growing up, I would have the same opinion they would. Like, if I was into RPGs and I played this growing up, I would have the same opinion they would. It is a really well-made RPG. It's a really great iteration of the Paper Mario mechanics. I think the storytelling is absolutely fantastic. Even like you mentioned before, Try, how it gets a little tiresome where it's just like, oh, it's just Princess Peach needing to be rescued again. That you also made a really good point in how this is its own separate world, like it's its own villains, it's its own living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
They do a great job at telling a different story. And what's crazy is
Bowser is almost, I mean, we haven't even said the word Bowser except Doug Bowser. I mean, he's completely a joke in this. I mean, he's just there in the background to laugh at between chapters. So
he's part of the intermission.
It's a really different scenario.
And I think it's crazy that we've spent this much time discussing this game. Like you said, never mentioned Bowser once. And also the fact that like you actually have a good story in a Mario game. You generally don't have like a good story. Like the story is so it's there to reinforce the gameplay. It's not there to be a focal point. And while this, I wouldn't say is necessarily a focal point, it's also not just an afterthought either. There's different little vignette stories in each chapter that are really interesting, and the characters are super deep. They have interesting motivations, and you feel for them when stuff goes wrong. It's just, there's a lot to love about this game. So as much as I have some issues with some of the stuff I talked about, whether it's chapter 7 or whether it's the audience or whether it's, things here and there, this game has much higher highs than Paper Mario. It has much lower lows, but I think overall there are many more highs than there are lows in this game. So I'm really happy I finally got to play this game and work through my second Paper Mario game. So yeah, it was really fun. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Try. Final thoughts on Paper Mario, the 1,000-Year Door.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this was a game that was really worth, getting, remade, brought, back to a new audience because of that uniqueness of the scenario. Because it, so many of the settings are and scenarios are so unlike what you would expect from Mario. I mean, this is scenario-wise maybe the most unique Mario game.
Yeah.
And so I think it was worth bringing back into the current audience for that reason. And Josh, you say like people really hold it on a pedestal. I think there's a good reason for that. Paper Mario got bad.
It got real bad.
It got kind of bad. Not to scare you off of future games, it got kind of bad. And I think I think for the most part, like there really was largely an element of truth to people holding it up to, it wasn't just nostalgia goggles. It really was. Paper Mario games weren't very good after this game for a long time. And I think people got so used to every Paper Mario game being a little bit bad for so long that when Origami King came out, I think there are still people who probably haven't played it or maybe played it, but were like, I don't know, this puzzle battle mechanic is a little obnoxious or something, and didn't really give it the chance it deserves, because I think that game really got back on track. So my final thought basically is, I'm so glad that, by inviting me onto this podcast, you motivated me to replay this game. This was the game that I wanted to replay the most, because I was like, I really wanted to, while Origami King is still relatively fresh in my mind, I really wanted to have a point of comparison so I could judge for myself what is my favorite Paper Mario game. And this is a great game, great scenario. I did enjoy going back to the more relatively straightforward battles in this. But there are just enough threads of annoyance and things that I can even see going forward into Super Paper Mario, things I didn't like in that were kind of amplified in the following game. So I'm like, oh yeah, I feel I have a little bit of renewed perspective on this game, but I still love it. I think it's an all-time classic. I think, everyone who loves Mario in RPG form must play this game because it's absolutely one of the top 3 Mario
Absolutely.
RPGs ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, I think that is no better way to end this episode and this discussion. So I want to thank both of you again for joining me on this episode. It was a pleasure having you both back on the show. It's been a long time for you, Jared, since you've been back on. So I'm really happy to get you back on and try. I always love having you on. It's always a good time. So
sorry I make your episodes so long.
Dude, this may sound weird. I love long episodes. It feels like then I think part of it is like, especially for games like this, right? Where there's like, this is a very big, popular and important game. If it's under 2 hours, I almost feel like I did the game a disservice.
Interesting.
So I kind of feel a little bit relieved when I see that it's like a 2 hour thing. I'm like, well, this is going to be a pain to edit, but man, is it going to be good when it comes out.
And to be fair, we could have yapped more about this game too. So
yeah, there was stuff. There is stuff that we didn't talk about any of the Bowser play segments, like playing as Bowser.
2D Mario games in the
we didn't
with
talk
Bowser.
about any of the Peach moments, like her relationship with the
streaking
computer.
Through. She's in a relationship with the computer. God, there's so much in this game. Oh my god.
Like, and it's a tragic relationship too. Like there was a lot of stuff that we did not discuss, and we had a small technical hiccup in the middle, which you all will not hear because I'm a good editor. But even so, like, we're going to be over 2.5 hours for this, and you both have to still give your plug. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, yeah, it's 2.5 hours, but man, it's going to be a fun 2.5 hours to edit. So let's do the plugs now. Let me throw it over to you, my wonderful guests. Try, we're going to start off with you. Where can the good people find you online, and what would you like to promote?
I'm from the YouTube channel My Life in Gaming. We release videos over there whenever we can. Mostly retro focused, but it's really whatever we want. Although even when it's a modern game, it tends to be with a retro gamer's perspective, I suppose. We especially look at like a lot of hardware, a lot of video setup type things. And we stream every Sunday night on the YouTube channel at 8 p.m. Eastern time to roughly 11:30 Eastern time every Sunday night. And I'm also from the website The Backloggery. I'm one of the founding members of The Backloggery, and we do streams on Twitch on the Backloggery Twitch channel every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern to about 11 p.m. Eastern, working through our backlogs. And, Josh alluded to, I have basically no social media presence. unless you count YouTube as social media, I don't. That's basically where I'm at.
There is some social media for the My Life in Gaming YouTube channel, which I believe Corey runs.
I occasionally touch it, but very rarely. Yeah.
Honestly, it's better for your mental health. Keep it that way. Trust me.
Hey, I foresaw that before anyone ever did.
I'm looking at early.
I'm looking at early Facebook, and I'm like, I'm not ever going to sign up for that. We're talking back in college when I was playing the original Paper Mario 1000-Year Door. I'm like, I don't want any part of this. What is appealing about this? I don't know.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's anyway, I'll keep
Discord it serves as my AOL Instant Messenger replacement, and that's all I really
There you go.
I love that.
It's so good. Jared, what about you? Where can the good people find you online, and what would you like to promote?
Yeah, so first, Josh, thanks for having me on. It was a great time talking about this game and everything around it. But yeah, I'm part of the Play Along podcast, myself and my other two co-hosts, Kai and Ben. What we do is we kind of play games in a book club format. We'll each take turns choosing a game, and then we spend like 2 months just breaking down that game, going through its narrative, its mechanics, art, music, all of that stuff. Really kind of diving deep into these games. The three of us all have a wide range of games that we like. So we've played things like Tears of the Kingdom to Disco Elysium to, hey, Super Mario RPG. I can't promise that you won't be upset if you listen to that, but it's there for you to
I will
listen.
not listen. I will be upset.
Yeah. You will be upset. But hey, it's on there. We've done other retro things. We did Chrono Trigger as well. That's another
Which you will
one
also be upset, but
you will
don't-
also be upset.
I love the idea of all of this, though. So
Yeah.
everyone do check it out.
Yeah, so we play a bunch of different kinds of games, which is fun because I get to check a lot of games off my backlog. I get to check out a lot of games that I normally wouldn't have. So it's a fabulous time. And then we have another series on our show that we do called Get Wrecked, where one of us is joined by a guest, streamer, podcaster, friend of the internet, to swap video game recommendations. Josh was on there 2 years ago now. Wow, that's wild.
something like that.
Crazy, where we talked about Gravity Rush and Pokemon Crystal. So wild things like that. And it's just a good time to get a game off the backlog and to get someone onto the show to just, gush about a game that they really enjoyed. But yeah, that is Play Along Podcast. I mean, you can find us anywhere you find our podcast, Play Along Pod, on most social medias. And by the time this episode comes out, we are playing through the PS1 title Alundra. So if that's something that you're interested in and curious on, that's the game we're playing through. Again, we have a person on the podcast that hates retro games. So I mean, that deters you. I'm sorry. I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
You just get a nice balance of perspectives. That's how I'm looking at it. You get a nice balance of perspectives.
Hate is a strong word. I also don't know Kai's opinions on this yet. Me and Ben are determined to find either an isometric action RPG or an old school RPG that he enjoys. It's out there. It just is not.
Isometric games can be hard to find. Anyway,
yeah,
I could see that. All right. Yes, please, everyone, go check out all that stuff, both from Try and from Jared. All of it is amazing, so please go check them out. As for myself, as per usual, you can follow me on Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram at Still Loading Pod on all those locations. I also stream on Twitch periodically at Still Loading Pod over there, usually Tuesday and Saturday nights, though it depends on my recording schedule. If I'm recording that night, then I obviously am not streaming. So, but it's usually around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on those nights. Tuesday nights, though, I stream over with my buddy Andrew over at the Experience Point at his Twitch channel at the EXP Point, where we do Talk Tuesdays, which is like a weekly talk show where we just talk about the things we've experienced that week, whether it is gaming or otherwise. That usually covers a range of different topics and whatnot. So you can check all that out. But if you like what you listen to, you like what you're hearing on Mario Month this year, and you want to support the show, easiest way to do that, give it a 5-star rating or review on whichever podcasting app you use, because it helps more people find the show. And you know what, I like seeing those 5-star reviews. It's nice to see that too. But that's a very easy way for you to support the show, and it just takes a moment of your time. If you really, really like the show, you want to support it monetarily, there is a Patreon, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you get all the episodes a little bit earlier with better audio quality, as well as access to patron voting rights. There are quarterly polls that you can help guide the direction of the show. And there's usually a big poll to kick off the year where I pick 4 games out of my backlog. There's like 16 that go up, but only the 4 that get voted on the most are being played for backlog month, which is coming this October. So you can look forward to that. For $3 a month, you get everything I mentioned prior, plus patron shoutouts, which you heard at the beginning of this episode. For $4 a month, you get all of that, all of the previous things, plus 2 mini bonus episodes. And at the time this comes out, there's over 80 of them. There's over 80 bonus episodes that you can check out, mini bonus episodes. And for $5 a month, you get all of that stuff, the bonus episodes, the early access, the patron voting rights, the patron shout outs, and you get access to my monthly movie podcast, which at the time this comes out is called Still Family, which is my monthly Fast and Furious movie podcast, where all the guests who join me aren't just friends, they're family. And if you want to check out more, there's also Still Bonding, which I covered every single James Bond movie on there. So over 20 some odd episodes. And those episodes, let me tell you, they are not short. Try was on Live and Let Die, and that was like a 2.5 to 3 hour long episode. And just because Bond movies are long. So lots of content for you over at patreon.com/stillloadingpod. I need to get better at doing those plugs shorter, but that is all the time I have for you on this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all so much for listening. Jared, Try, thank you once again for joining me.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
And with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.